Good morning. This regular meeting of the School Board of Broward County, Florida is now called to order. Ms. Bartleman will be addressing our Pledge of Allegiance this morning. Ms. Bartleman?
Yes. Are they on the video screen?
They're going to be. After you announce them, they're going to be able to be
Okay.
live.
So it's my honor to introduce the students of Chapel Trail Elementary. Are you guys here? Oh, there you guys are. Hi, everybody. How are you doing?
Good morning, everyone. We are so happy to be with you this morning. My name is Susan Suarez, and I am the proud principal of Chapel Trail Elementary School. This morning, we are in Ms. Spencer's second grade class. They will be helping us, leading us with the Pledge of Allegiance. Students, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, students. You may be seated. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Have a
Chapel
good day.
Trail.
Thanks, everyone.
And I hope you'll leave them up a second so everyone can see what our classrooms look like and look at the virtual students working from home. Thank you all so much. Enjoy your school day. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ms. Bartleman, Ms. Suarez, and all of the students for bringing that forward to us this morning. In order for the meeting to operate with an appropriate professional environment, at this time, we respectfully request that all cell phones be turned off or put into the silence mode. Please do step out of the boardroom if you need to answer your cell phone or make a call, as talking on your cell phone during the meeting is not permitted. Public comments will be accepted on all agenda items in the following manner. Any person may present live comments by attending the K.C. Wright Administration Building's boardroom at 600 Southeast 3rd Avenue, Fort Lauderdale, Florida 33301. In accordance with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention guidelines, each person will be required to wear a face covering for their nose and mouth. Individuals are responsible for providing their own mask, and they are asked to remain at least 6 feet from other attendees upon arrival as they enter the KCW building and until his or her departure. Any person who submits written comments regarding noticed agenda items to Naomi Gutierrez, our supervisor for official school board records at 600 Southeast 3rd Avenue, Fort Lauderdale, Florida 33301, or by email to publiccomment@browardschools.com. No later than 2 hours in advance of the published time of the school board operational meeting. Anonymous comments were not accepted, therefore each written comment must have included the person's name and address. At this time, we will pause for a moment of silence. Ms. Murray has asked to bring a moment of silence for community member Mr. Alan Levy.
Yes, it's with great sadness that today I ask for a moment of silence for the memory of a truly great friend to many of us, Alan Levy, who was passed. He was a gentleman who always had a smile on his face and an encouraging word for all of us. I know his wife, Marcia, you know, they just was such a special couple. So at this time, I'd like to take a moment of silence. Would anybody else like to say something before we take the moment? No? Okay, thank you. All right.
I will just share that, I'm sorry, Ms. Good?
No, I think, Ms. Murray, you said it very well. He was so passionate about public education, always a friend to the public school system, and everything that we did here for many, many years. A true advocate, I would say, for children in need in a variety of ways. And certainly he and his wife were always the dancers of dancers at our Broward Education Foundation events. So just as you said, a man with a genuine caring heart, and he will definitely be missed. I'm sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And truly a passion for public education and how the business community could play a positive and a significant role. He didn't just have a passion, he acted on that passion. And he did it in all of the years that I worked with him, even long before I was on the board. And we will certainly miss him and send our regards to his family.
Okay. Yeah, and I just would like to just take a privilege at this moment from the board. Alan and Marcia, dear friends of mine, and I'll tell you that Alan was someone who really just made everyone feel well, in addition to his passion for education. And when I think about the time period we're in, where people are divided by politics, religion, many other issues, Alan taught us, I think, that kindness and love is what we need, and we need that now more than ever to unite us all. And you know, I just want to express my condolences to Marcia, Eric, and Hope, and the entire family, and thank them for sharing Alan with us. And I know my life's been truly blessed to have had him as a friend. He's someone I love very much, and will certainly miss him. Thank you.
We could have a moment of silence, please. Thank you, Ms. Murray, for bringing that forward. As we prepare to begin our operational meeting, we are reminded that our vision is to educate today's students to succeed in tomorrow's world. Our purpose today and every day is to achieve this goal. A couple of things that I wanted to be able to address before we get into more of the logistics of the meeting. First, we have changed the format in which we will be bringing resolutions and proclamations forward. And it's in an effort, certainly with COVID, but even pre-COVID, as a board, we had discussed the opportunity to be able to really have as much exposure with our students and in our community as possible as we bring these items forward. So our actual resolutions are going to be pre-recorded with Beacon. It's going to be an opportunity to really have more of a full presentation rather than what we can just do here in the board room. Our very first resolution that we will be doing now that our students are back in our schools and we're able to engage our students in this format, we're going to be able to recognize LGBT History Month, which was first, thank you to Ms. Levinson, brought forward in 2012. We were the first board to have a recognition for LGBT History Month. And so we thought that it was appropriate for that to be the first resolution that we will have in this format. The presentation will actually be provided when we have breaks here at our school board meetings, as well as other opportunities on Beacon and through our other formats in social media. So there's going to be an opportunity not only to see it one time here at a board meeting, but it will be repeated in different types of media opportunities, and we are very much looking forward to it and looking forward to what our students and our staff and Beacon are able to bring forward, as these resolutions are very important to us and deserve that extra time and attention. So I just want to mention that for the community, so the community understands the adjustment, but it was something that was very important to us as board members to be able to really give it that extra focus and attention, even pre-COVID. But with COVID, as it is here now, it actually makes it even more appropriate for us to be able to have those resolutions brought forward. In addition, I wanted to take a pause and just share, at the last meeting, I, on behalf of my colleagues, took a moment to say thank you to everyone at our school level, from our bus drivers, our custodians, our ESPs, our cafeteria staff, our administration, our teachers, our volunteers, our SROs, everyone across the board who impacts the education for our students. Having that moment to stop and say thank you is very important, and sometimes we don't take that pause to do so. I'd like to just take one step further, and I know my colleagues have heard some wonderful stories of educators in our schools that, now that we are back to brick and mortar, are doing an outstanding job with this new format that none of us have ever seen before. And yet they've taken it upon themselves to truly be able to interact with those students who are in front of them and still successfully be able to engage the students who are learning from home through their e-learning. And it's a very unique situation. It's a very unique setting. And at the same time, we've seen some really incredible examples of how educators truly are the greatest of the professionals in our community. And with that said, they're the ones who are allowing our workforce and our community to really get back to work. And so I would like to take an opportunity to invite parents and students to reach out to me via email and share some of those stories. I truly enjoy hearing them. I know my colleagues do as well, but I would like to take an opportunity to recognize in my own daughter, who is a Broward County Public School graduate. I'm going to ask that she select 8 of those individuals, 8 of those teachers who were recognized, and provide them with a small gift card, thanking them for going above and beyond, for working with us in these challenging times and really making education the pivotal difference that it truly is in our students' lives. So I just invite parents and students, if you'd like, to donna.corn@browardschools.com, share those stories, and I will have an opportunity to be able to then reach out to 8 of those teachers to really give them an extra special thank you, as well as obviously acknowledging them for the stories that you all have shared and brought forward. With that, we're going to move forward with the next part of our meeting, which is our minutes for approval. October 6th of 2020, which was our special expulsions. If I could please have a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Good, second by Dr. Osgood. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The minutes have been approved. Are there any changes to the agenda, Mr. Superintendent?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have the following changes for the agenda. G3, personal recommendations for non-instructional appointments and leaves for the 2020-2021 school year. That is a second revision. CC2, revisions to policy 2130, behavioral threat assessment policy has been revised. EE6, recommendation to approve the agreement with Scholastic Rising K, that is revised. EE15, recommendation for additional spending authority, instructional materials, 5-year plan for the 2020 to 2025 school year is an added item. EE16, recommendation to approve agreements with school resource officers for 2020-21 school year is an added item. II1, school surveillance camera system access agreement is added. And finally, LL2, facility use agreement by and between Miami Beckman United and the School Board of Broward County, Florida is an added item. Madam Chair, we have no further proposed changes to the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Runcie. The changes to the agenda proposed by the superintendent are accepted by the chair after being determined good cause has been established for said changes. May the chair please have a motion and a second to close the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Good, second by Ms. Oliveff. All in favor of closing the agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. So the agenda is now closed. The school board will consider agenda items in the following order. The school board will first identify any consent items, which are single-letter items on the agenda that will be pulled for separate discussion. All remaining consent items that were not pulled for separate discussion will then be approved by consent. The school board will next consider G3, followed by any other G items that were pulled from the agenda for discussion. After the G items are considered, the school board will proceed in accordance with the agenda's lettering system. The school board will consider any consent items, which are our single-letter items, then for discussion for a given letter, and consider any open items, which are our double-letter items, for that same letter. The meeting agenda has been modified to correspond with this order. So our next item of business is the consent agenda. This is the time that board members advise the chair of those items they wish to address. Subsequent to this, the chair will ask if any members of the public would like to have an item pulled, which has not already been pulled by a board member. All those items not pulled for separate consideration will then be approved under the consent agenda. For the following consent agenda, are there any board members that would like to discuss? G3 is automatically pulled. Any G items? Okay. Seeing none, E items? I1? J1? Yes, Ms. Oliveff? And L1? Is good. Is there anyone from the audience that would like to pull an agenda item that has not already been pulled? If you would please come up to the microphone, just state your name, please, and the item that you would like pulled.
Allen, G4.
I'm sorry, which number?
G4.
G4, and your name, sir?
Trevor Allen.
Thank you. Any additional items from the audience? Thank you. So at this time, may the chair please have a motion and a second to pass the consent, I'm sorry, is there, oh, yes, Ms. Brinkworth, sorry.
No, that's okay. If you could just add me for G4 as well, that would be great. Thank you.
Oh, sure. At this time, may the chair please have a motion and a second to pass the consent items that have not already been pulled for discussion. Moved by Ms. Olive, second by Dr. Osgood. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. At this time, will board members please identify the open items they will be asking questions of staff. This will better manage staff's time by letting them know which open items we intend to address. So we'll begin with the CC items. Yes, Ms. Good.
CC5.
EE items? Yes, Ms. Holiday?
EE5 and EE16.
Thank you. Ms. Levinson?
EE6, just to hear about, and EE15.
Thank you. Okay.
Can you just say EE?
So I have EE 5, 6, 15, and 16. Ms. Brinkworth?
EE9, please.
EE 9. Thank you. II 1. Yes, Ms. Holiday. JJ items. LL items, LL1 or LL2, Ms. Holiday?
LL2.
Thank you. As we begin taking items for the regular school board meeting, the public will have an opportunity to speak to the items. I do ask to remind the public that our speakers are advised to refrain from obscene or vulgar conduct, slanderous remarks, or statements that tend to incite violence or breach of the peace. Speakers are reminded to demonstrate proper decorum and model the district's 8 character traits: cooperation, responsibility, citizenship, kindness, respect, honesty, self-control, and tolerance. May the chair please have a motion and a second to consider G3. Moved by Dr. Osgood, second by Ms. Good. Is there audience input on G3?
Natalie Lynch Walsh, Plantation, Florida. I see on here that the acting or task assigned chief fire official is being reassigned. The prior one's been gone for a while now. I forgot when the task force passed a motion, the facilities task force, asking what's going on with this position. So it might behoove everyone to pull all the resumes again, because those of you that have been here for a while may recall when, for some insane reason, a qualified applicant did not make it through to the end, and because the guy was at work battling, I believe, a fire where he worked. So just to make sure that there isn't something unusual going on here, you want to see all the resumes separated out by who's qualified, not qualified, and who they plan to interview, because they mention that they have an applicant pool. But it does seem a little odd that every time you try to fill this position since Jerry Grazios left, it's been a struggle. And you end up with people that may or may not fit the qualifications, which, speaking of which, it sounds as though you need to have a really serious conversation about what is a minimum qualification per state statute, per board policy, per intent, and everything else. because there seems to be a lot of confusion among staff as to what that means. And the same staff were a little less confused 2 years ago when someone who clearly exceeded minimum qualifications was prevented from having a job, and you were trying to do the opposite.
Point of order, that's
Yeah,
not.
so we're going to stay on topic.
Oh, this is so minimum qualifications, that's how you select people. Just keep it in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional audience input? Seeing none, to my colleagues, is there conversation and discussion on G3? Seeing none, all those in favor of G3, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. G3 passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Chisholm. So with that, we are very excited to be able to announce the new appointments from G3. Ms. Bartleman, if you'd like to share the first 3 individuals, and then I'll continue.
I want to congratulate Daryl Anderson. He or she is the temporary assignment working out of classification as shift supervisor for the transportation terminal. Congratulations. Bernadetta Campbell Rembert. She's temporary assignment working out of classification as shift supervisor in the transportation terminal. And I also want to just take a moment of personal privilege. I was at the bus lot on their first day, and I just want to thank them. They were so cheery, and the bus drivers and everyone out there, and so excited, and couldn't wait to greet our students. So I just want to thank all of them for everything they do. They're really unsung heroes of the district, so thank you to all the bus drivers, the aides, and our transportation staff. Next, I have Cheryl Miller. She is temporary assignment for working out of classification as Beacon Traffic Supervisor.
Thank you. Also, our temporary assignment for working out of classification as our route planner, Lafrida Reeder. Congratulations. And also, task assignment for manager, emergency management, and chief fire official, Victoria Stanford.
And it is my honor and privilege this morning to welcome to District 3 schools Belshelia Flanders, the new campus security manager at Whitten Rogers Education Center. Thank you for being here. It's been a long time since we've had that opportunity. Tori Johnson, campus security manager for Stranahan High School. We can give a clap. Even though we're not here. And Ronald Langston, campus security manager, Northeast High School.
I'd like to welcome and congratulate Travis Bentley, Campus Security Manager, Nova High. Welcome. And Donald Smith, Campus Security Manager, South Plantation High. Welcome.
It is my pleasure to announce that Richard Noble is our new campus security manager at Hollywood Hills, and welcome to our Spartan family.
And it is a pleasure to welcome to Dillard 6 through 12 as a campus security manager, Mr. Herbert Morris. Would also like to welcome as a campus security manager to Parkway Middle School, Mr. Vincent C.
On behalf of Ms. Rupert, we'd like to welcome Campus Security Manager for Pompano Beach High School, Medford McLemore. And our Campus Security Manager, Atlantic Tech College and Technical High School, Ralston Wright. Thank you all so much for being here today. Those who were not able to join us, congratulations and welcome as well. So very happy to have you here joining the district in your roles. You certainly can stay with us for the day and hang out and see what we're doing here at the board, or you're welcome to go to your jobs at this time. So thank you again very much, and congratulations. We now have an opportunity to be able to hear our committee reports. Our committee reports may have up to 5 minutes each. Are there any reports today?
Good morning, Madam
Yes.
Chair.
Do we have, we're going to take those who are here first. Do we also have written committee reports? Perfect. So anyone who's here today is our student advisors. Will you all be giving a report today? Yes?
Yes, we
Rocco, would
will.
you like to begin for us?
Yes.
Can we give Rocco a microphone, please? He's up in the very front corner. Yes, want to try again? No, we're still not hearing him. Is there, on the microphone, there's a button to push, and if it turns green, then you're on.
All right, it's on.
There we go, it certainly is, thank you.
All right, thank you for allowing me to give this report. My name is Rocco Diaz. I'm one of the student advisors to the school board, and we're pleased to announce that we're bringing back the Broward Students Activities Association, which is a meeting place for representatives of major clubs from Broward County high schools to share ideas about upcoming events. And as you know, a small proportion of students returned to school this week, and judging from an informal survey the two of us conducted, one piece of information the students will be able to benefit from is whether they will know if they've been in the same classroom as someone who has symptoms or has been tested positive for COVID, regardless of whether it's at the same time. And we encourage schools to find ways of sharing this information because there's only so much that the Broward County COVID dashboard can cover. And in our schools, for the students who missed the socialization aspect of school, multiple clubs have had meetings online, which is making them more accessible now than ever. And thank you, that's the extent of our report.
Thank you very much. If I could just ask to pause, these are important questions. Obviously, some of our students have raised them. I don't know if Mr. Moquin or Mr. Runcie would like to address, but was specifically asked if a student, what is the notification? And I know we've addressed this before, but again, the sharing of information, the notification in the event that a student has tested positive, they're in a specific classroom, the notification for any students who might then be in that classroom, not with that student, but after that student.
Yeah, so I'm going to, Jeff Moquin, Chief of Staff. I think the best individual to answer this is Dr. Hickman. He's been working closely on the protocols, and in fact, we're in the process of making some enhancements that maybe he'll talk about as well.
Thank you, Dr. Hickman.
Good morning, Antoine Hickman, Chief of Student Support Initiatives and Recovery. And so, yes, we've been in contact with the Department of Health as recent as yesterday on communication. So in terms of communication to parents or students and staff who've been in close proximity or who've had close contact, that is really defined as being 6 feet or less for more than 15 minutes. And so if there's a positive case, then we are notifying those students who've had close contact. And then we've also notifying staff and everyone who has been contacted. In addition, we are just notifying a general memo to the school community, and then we're posting that information on the dashboard twice a week, Tuesday and Friday.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I think the question was more specific to, you had mentioned if you're there, you have to have the social distancing, and if it's been someone who's there for more than 15 minutes. I think the concern is in middle school or high school, I'm in a classroom, a student who may not be in class with me tested positive, they go to another classroom, I then go into that classroom behind them. I'm not with that student. Is there any notification to those other students? And I think the answer to that question, Rocco, is everyone at that school is going to be given a notification, and we don't notify anyone of who the specific student or staff member may have been. So you would not necessarily know, but there would be a heightened level of notification if you happen to be in that classroom setting, but not necessarily if you are following that student in that room. Is that correct, Dr. Hickman?
That's correct.
Okay. Hopefully that addresses the question, so at least there's further knowledge in terms of notifications. But everyone at the school will be notified if someone has that COVID case, and if you are in that classroom setting with that student or that staff member, or in a whatever other setting you might be in, an auditorium and so forth, those individuals would then have a direct notification. Dr. Hickman, yes.
In addition, those spaces would be disinfected.
Okay.
Perfect. So at the end of that school day, as soon as it's notified, or that timing, as soon as the notification occurs is when we step in and start to do that disinfecting. Is that correct, Dr. Hickman?
Yes.
Okay, so as soon as we would be notified, then those additional protocols would take place in terms of the cleaning. of those areas that they have interacted with at the school building. So hopefully, and thank you very much both to Gianna and Rocco for bringing that concern forward so that we're able to share it with the community. Additional committee reports, I believe our PTA, PTSA is here. Art, would you like to share?
Good morning, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, Superintendent Runcie, board members, and staff. My name is Bert Miller. I am the Broward County Council PTA President. As you would imagine, many of our board members would have liked to have been here today to share in this special time, but are unable to due to the current situation. I stand before you here today on behalf of the Broward County Council PTA, PTSA, and all of our members in our local units to honor two board members that through the years have sacrificed and dedicated their time to Broward County students, families, and communities. We would like to recognize Ms. Heather Brinkworth. Thank you so much for your service and dedication as a school board member and previously as a PTA president. It was an honor to work with you to ensure the Broward County Public Schools continue to provide high-quality education to all children. You represented your district with grace and integrity. We thank you for attending our county council events and all the local events that you were always so graciously available for. Over the years, we will miss seeing you on the school board, but know that there is always a home for you with PTA. We'd also like to recognize Ms. Robin Bartleman. As we thank you for your school board service, it is not a goodbye, as we will continue to depend on your advocacy for children and public education in the legislature. We appreciate all that you have done for the children of Broward County and for supporting our council events. We know that you will continue to put them first in Tallahassee, and PTA looks forward to continue working with you to prioritize children and public education. In honor of your countless hours of dedication and hard work, it gives the Broward County Council, PTA, PTSA, great pleasure on this 20th day of October 2020 to present to the both of you this award of Florida PTA Honorary Life Membership, which is given for meritorious and outstanding service on behalf of children and youth.
Thank you very much. Dr. Nyla Lynch-Walsh, are you bringing forward a committee report today, or? Yes? Okay.
Do I stay up here so he doesn't have to sanitize? Okay, thank you. Okay. Dr. Natalie Lynch-Walsh, Chair of the Facilities Task Force. This report is a continuation of our last report and update and our next couple of meetings. So, update on the superintendent's single point of contact 915 memo. As shared with Facilities Task Force members, the 681-page plus attachments response to the chair's public records request included an email sent on September 16, 2020 from the Executive Director of Capital Programs to a select group of staff members and consultants, ACOM and Atkins, that began with the salutation team, but contained the following. As stated by the superintendent, any deviation from these new protocols will result in progressive disciplinary action. Not enforceable, not enforceable. The remaining emails are being reviewed and include multiple instances of clear intent on the part of the executive director to misrepresent facts for the purpose of misleading the superintendent and school board. The board chair has been notified repeatedly, but has failed to act to bring about resolution. We won't even get into general counsel. Policy 1001
So,
and
Dr.
quorum.
Natalie Lynch-Walsh, can we stop the time for a second? This is supposed to be a report from the committee. This
Yes,
is
and
not
that-
for, okay,
This was shared with the committee and will be continued to be shared and discussed at the next meeting.
This is a committee report, not from the chair from the committee.
Okay, well, the words are already out of my mouth. I can't shove them back in. Policy 1001 in quorum. Motion passed at the 10-1 task force meeting and previously reported at the 10-6 board meeting. We recommend the school board enact School Board Policy 1001, emergency rules, to reduce the number of advisory members required for physical quorum to 3, or a number acceptable to all advisories, as soon as possible so we can conduct business for the rest of the school year. The rest of required quorum to be virtual. This passed unanimously. So to clarify, advisories are looking for a solution that allows advisories to reduce the number of people required to physically attend a meeting, not to reduce the number necessary for quorum. Quorum would still need to be met through the remaining members meeting via Teams. Hopefully that's clear. Continued review of the onboarding of ACOM and transitioning out of CBRE HERE. We're still awaiting a draft of the performance matrix from 6.7.9 of the PMOR RFQ, which is part of the contract. They're saying a draft isn't ready as of the 10-1 meeting. According to the contract, revised rubrics, and please understand there are 2, because they didn't follow their own RFQ, were due in 60 days. That's getting close. They also said that they'll be implementing our recording secretary's recommendation to keep the 6-month extension with HERE and use the remainder of the 6-month period to ensure that OCP, Atkins, and ACOM have all the data and deliverables necessary from CBRE HERE. Any monies owed CBRE HERE would be released at the end of the 6-month period following written verification from the Office of Capital Programs, Atkins, and ACOM that they have received everything necessary. We reiterated our request for a checklist of activities and deliverables the district is requesting from CBRE HERE prior to termination. This was to avoid a repeat of Jacobs. Our next, we'll be holding a special virtual meeting of the task force on Thursday, October 29th. The purpose of the meeting is to continue discussion from our October 1st agenda, discuss the Bond Oversight Committee meeting, address any specific area or DAC concerns, and hold elections of community representatives. For example, at the last DAC meeting, there were concerns raised about the schools with delayed reopenings. Our next regular meeting, which will follow board workshop protocol, is November 5th from 7 to 9 p.m., and unless something changes, that's what we'll be doing. So we're looking at having a demonstration of how eBuilder, ISS, Maximo, and P6 are used to manage the big 3 projects. Since Maximo is being used primarily for PPO, we're looking for a demonstration of how it is used by the program manager and PPO following substantial completion and at the completion of the 12-month warranty period for those projects already completed. It was also very helpful to have the building department able to pull up a permit status on ISS during our last meeting, and the expectation is for other staff to similarly access eBuilder and P6 to answer questions. Generally, they tell you things off the top of their heads. Finally, since I have 24 seconds, the current communication practice, the single point of contact with a TSP instead of a director, resulted in staff being unable to ask the chair for clarification on agenda items, assumptions being made, and time spent preparing for questions that were not asked. If there is to be no communication between staff and the person preparing the agenda, in the future, we'll add further clarifying language to assist staff. Okay, I've also been asked.
I'm sorry, 1 second. Dr. Neesmith?
Excuse me. So, Madam Chair, the next committee report comes from the District Advisory Council. The chair, Ms. Debbie Espinoza, has requested for Dr. Natalie Lynch-Walsh to read her committee report.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Good morning, Chairwoman Corn, board members, and Superintendent Runcie. DAC would like to thank Dr. Wanzer, Dr. Hickman, Mr. Gohl, and Ms. Koch for their attendance and participation at the October DAC meeting.
Dr. Natalie Lynch-Walsh, just one, I apologize if you could stop the time. So the chair has asked, is Dr. Natalie Lynch-Walsh a member of DAC?
It is my understanding that she is, but she can clarify.
Okay.
To be very specific, Ms. Espinoza requested because she wanted it read with passion, and I'll just be very blunt. She felt that Mr. Moquin and I did not read her reports with passion.
Okay, so we need members of the committee to be able to read. This is not a selection of someone other than Mr. Moquin. So Dr. Natalie Lynch, are you a member of DAC?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, where was I? They provided answers to numerous questions and clarifications to stakeholders. If district personnel did not have answers, they promised to send them as soon as possible to be distributed to stakeholders. It was an extremely productive meeting. A new motion was presented by DAC member Jackie Luscombe, passed unanimously, and reads as follows. We move that the SBBC and its general counsel make representation to the state of Florida concerning the significant difficulties posed by the state's requirements on volunteer advisory bodies to meet in person beyond the expiration of the governor's executive order, and to seek dispensation from the state to lower physical quorum for each of its advisories. Quorum, as stated in each advisory's bylaws, currently would still need to be met. Lowering the quorum that needs to be physically present in a brick and mortar location could be reduced. As COVID-19 continues to be a concern, members of advisories, committees, and task forces are being forced to choose between returning to face-to-face meetings or protecting our health and the well-being of our families. There has been no physical location deemed acceptable by CDC guidelines that would accommodate the entire membership of District Advisory Council and other groups. Where will area advisories meet? Where will school-based advisories meet? I and many members of DAC sit on several committees. Are we supposed to increase our risk even further by meeting with different people in different groups? Have you asked your appointees if they are willing to attend meetings if they are held in person at a yet-to-be-named facility with full membership and attendance? If 4 or 5 members in a physical setting and the remainder of quorum being met online is established, we would be able to conduct business and maintain a lower exposure rate. As per Policy 1001, Section 4, A and B, Emergency Rules, Policies. A, when the school board determines that public health, safety, or welfare is endangered and that immediate action is required to protect the public interest, the school board may adopt such emergency rules, policies, at any meeting during which a quorum is present without complying with the waiting periods, public hearings, and other similar requirements as provided in this rule. The superintendent shall properly record the effective date for any emergency rule. B, any emergency rule shall not be valid in excess of 90 days from the adoption or effective date. When an emergency rule is adopted and the school board determines that such a rule shall be adopted as a permanent rule, the non-emergency rule adoption proceedings prescribed in this rule shall be followed at least 60 days prior to the expiration date. You, as a school board and superintendent, have the authority and power to do what is right for volunteers and the community. Communication regarding past DAC motions has been non-existent, and this was occurring pre-COVID-19. Parents are questioning what types of masks are permitted in school and what are the consequences if students do not wear them properly. These topics were discussed at length over the summer during Code of Student Conduct and Discipline Matrix meetings. At the board workshop, the topics were mentioned, but no one referenced either of those groups. At a time when decisions such as the calendar for next school year are accompanied by should cameras be on, what does attendance actually mean? What type of mask is safe? Do schools have enough PPE? Which students go to the overflow room, etc.? It is imperative that the district and advisories work hand in hand to ensure the success of Broward County Public Schools. Thank you and stay safe.
Thank you. Do we have any other individuals here present to make a committee report? We do? Okay. Can we give Dr. Neesmith a microphone, please? Or turn his on? He has one, actually.
Yes, Madam Chair, the next report will come from the Human Relations Committee, and Mr. Tom Albano will provide that report on behalf of Myra Rodan, who's the chair.
Thank you.
Actually, I did not bring it with me. I thought that you were bringing it, Mr. Nesmith. So, do you have the report from Myra Rodan?
So while staff pulls up the report, why don't we come back, and then we will give you an opportunity. Thank you very much. Do we have anyone else here who is present to give a report? Wait, I'm sorry. Eric, I think you're good. I think Tom's going to come right back.
So, Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and move forward with the next committee report that was provided, and that comes from the Small Business Advisory Committee.
Okay, Small Business Advisory. Thank you.
On behalf of Mr. Carlton Krall, who's the chair, good day, Superintendent Runcie, Chair Korn, school board members, and staff. My name is Carlton Krall, and I chair the Small Business Advisory Committee managed by the Economic Development and Diversity Compliance Department. At the September 24th SBAC meeting, on the administrative front, staff emphasized the importance of the Policy 1.7 work group and updated the committee on the governor's executive order related to emergency management and COVID-19. EDDC reported that 6 of 9 committee members completed the mandatory district annual ethics training for school board established advisory committees. Per the SBAC bylaws, we unanimously approved 2 additional committee members representing the business community at large. Ms. Shawiha Jarrett Esquire was recommended by the Black Business Chamber of Broward County, and Ms. Carolina Prada was recommended by the Hispanic Unity and SCORE. Related to EDDC specific tasks, B2G now continues to progress with contract awards migrated into the system. Also, approximately 150 vendors and staff completed a system training. We continue to look forward to system implementation by December for the impact it will have on outreach, event management, and contract compliance. SBAC will contribute to the goal-setting process by providing input to staff in advance of the goal-setting committee and also serve as a non-voting member. Finally, I updated the committee on the August 31st annual meeting with Superintendent Runcie regarding the SBAC's goals and objectives for the year. To summarize it succinctly, we have a shared vision of the district becoming an award-winning culture of diversity and inclusion. Thank you for your time. And now, Madam Chair, I'll defer back to Mr. Tom Albano to provide the Human Relations Committee's report.
Thank you, Tom.
Good morning, everyone. This report is from the Human Relations Committee on behalf of Myra Rodan, the chairman who cannot be with us today. Take it off? Okay, sorry.
I am honored to come before you today on behalf of the Human Relations Committee to present our committee report. The Human Relations Committee would like to reiterate the committee's concerns of the viability of this committee's future meetings, as we must meet personally to conduct business and maintain quorum. Additional concerns stated by our members relate to the safety of each of us during the pandemic as we proceed into this unprecedented year. Ms. Barbara Myrick, General Counsel, provided a memorandum dated October 12, 2020, as a response to the inquiries of in-person meetings, virtual meetings of school board advisory committee meetings, which delineates several governor executive orders. As you are aware, the governor's executive order 20-246 provides provisions that allow local government, which includes advisory committees, to meet remotely without having a quorum physically present through 12:01 a.m. November 1st, 2020. Furthermore, the memorandum also spoke to the fact that quorum requirements that apply to the school board apply to advisory committees. We completely understand this, and thank you for the clarification, Ms. Myrick. Fortunately, our committee members consist of dedicated volunteer non-school board employees, dedicated students, dedicated board appointees, and dedicated district staff as administrators of appointees. Unfortunately, many, if not all, advisory committees have several high-risk members that must comply with CDC recommendations, which means we may not meet quorum beginning November, and who knows how long after that. If we cannot meet quorum, we can only have an information meeting, limiting the advisory committee's purpose and limiting our ability to conduct business as the board has intended us to do. Therefore, this committee would request that the board, the superintendent, and the general counsel continue to work towards some type of resolve in order for your board to establish advisory committees to function with full authority in the role that they serve. A resolution would, of course, allow the committee to have an equitable, diverse governing body that can qualitatively review policy and procedures, create motions, and vote on essential matters that directly impact education, our students, the community, and employees. Please remember, we serve as a resource for human relations for Broward County Public Schools, as reflected in our Human Relations Committee policy. For the record, as an officer of your advisory committee, I would like to state that this is very concerning. Our hands are tied, and as it seems, the advisory committees would be dismantled beginning next month because of the situation of the executive order. In order to comply with the required implementation of the governor's executive order, we sacrifice advisory committees' capabilities to conduct their official business as indicated in School Board Advisory Committee Policy 1.7 and the Human Relations Committee Policy 1.51. Once again, for public record, this committee states that it is dangerous for the advisory committees to conduct business at this time in person, physically, in groups, and in enclosed buildings, in an equitable manner. Please see only a few out of many links that address the concerns, and she has listed a few of the CDC websites. Secondly, this committee would like to address the school board's approval of equitable and inclusive school calendars. In particular, the Broward County Public Schools proposed calendar for school year 2021-22 and ongoing school years. Please note, a few days ago, the public received an inquiry via the BCPS app, which was interesting to say the least. The app's notice popped up on my cell phone, and there it was as a very user-friendly opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bono.
Madam Chair, the next committee report comes from the Technology Advisory Committee from Beth Ann Carr, who's the chair. We operated our meeting under our new bylaws.
Sorry,
Remember,
Dr. Neesmith, 1 second. Ms. Bartleman?
Can I ask a question? I know we are under the emergency order and everyone seems to have the same concerns. I don't know if the board in the future can take up amending or doing our own emergency order or amending how we do quorum for the committee so they can meet, because the last thing we want for them is not to be able to conduct business, and they're all like telling us one after the other the same thing. And I feel like we need to somehow figure out how we can be responsive to them. So, and as chair, I'll leave it to you to figure out how we go about that, but there's got to be a way to do something within our policy or an emergency policy, because we just can't stop business. And even though the schools are open and we're here, we still have students that are not attending school and teachers who are getting accommodations, and these are all volunteers and parents. So, I don't know.
Thank you. So, to Mr. Runcie, in terms of, this would require a discussion. I know that we do have an emergency policy, and we can discuss whether or not, Ms. Myrick, if you could just speak to what the process would be if we were to bring this forward in terms of an additional discussion from the board.
It's my opinion that the board cannot pass an emergency policy to change the rule regarding having a quorum physically present, because that's a statute, and a statute always supersedes any school board policy. So I don't see how you can do that legally. There certainly could be the board reaching out by mail to the governor, asking him maybe to continue the executive order just for committees, if he doesn't want to do it for public bodies as such as the school board. But I don't see a way to do that, do an emergency. I sent out another in response to some email that several of the board members got yesterday. I sent out another email last night to the board attaching the October 12th memo with another memo which basically stated what I just said.
So what I would ask is by, looking around to my colleagues, I would be certainly happy as the chair to write a letter to the governor, but I would just need a general consensus that there is interest on our part in reaching out to the governor and asking for him to provide that opportunity for our committees. Ms. Good?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I thought we'd discuss this topic a little later and finish listening to the reports, but since it's come up, I was going to bring up that very issue and the fact that you as chair and Mr. Runcie have communicated with the state before on other issues, and I think this is most appropriate. I understand the dilemma that many of our volunteers, who many of themselves have health conditions, it's not that they're unwilling to meet. So, but I also feel that we have to adhere to sunshine law and statutes. So I think it's paramount that this be looked into, and I certainly would appreciate that you do that on our behalf. Whether it be just you, Mr. Runcie, you and Vice Chair, Mr. Runcie, whatever you think is most appropriate. And the other point that I just wanted to make is, Ms. Myrick, I know that could we also request an opinion from the state Attorney General?
You could. The process of doing that is for me to prepare a memorandum of law for you all to pass and to then ask for the Attorney General to issue an opinion. And so if you would like me to do that, I will do that and bring that back. You are having a board meeting the beginning of November, so we could do that. But I also just want to warn you that it generally takes the Attorney General several months to, the last one I think that we asked for took 6 months, but I'll be glad to do that.
Well, I say that because I don't want this to become that this is just Ms. Myrick's opinion. She's trying to give us sound advice. And so the governor could, it's on him to provide an emergency order that would afford volunteers the opportunity to continue to serve. And so I think that we could always structure it in such a way that it requires some respectfully requesting some expedient review of the matter. I know it's up to them, but in light of what's going on, I think it would be prudent that we at least put that in the request and allow the state to opine on the matter. So that was my other recommendation.
Those would be two different, I would ask my colleagues to consider those as two different opportunities for the board. One would be a letter that sounds like, Ms. Good, you would be supportive of, as well as now a request for Ms. Myrick to take next steps in terms of reaching out for an opinion from the Attorney General. Yes. That would be separate from our letter. Okay, Dr. Osgood, did you want to weigh in?
I'm in agreement with both of those decisions, and I thought we would address it later. You and Mr. Runcie have done a remarkable job through this process of communicating, with the governor on our behalf, so I would like for you to continue. But I think it's important that we also observe the importance of people in this process. As we get all these executive orders and we want to follow the law, we continue to find ourselves put in positions that are just unrealistic, that just don't consider people. We were bullied into opening schools back up. Now we have these conflicting things where You know, Tallahassee think they can meet virtually. They don't want to give us the same courtesy for our volunteers. As a board member, we can't have people in schools working and then we're meeting virtually. It's just, the whole thing is just hypocritical, and it just does not show the value and importance of people's lives. So I just needed to say that on the record. I know you can't put that in the letter, but people are important and they matter, and COVID is real and the numbers are increasing, and science is not lying in what it's telling us. And I think we have to still move forward. We're in like a second emerging of this COVID virus right now, and it is a real thing that's impacting people. And it's not that people are just getting sick. People are literally dying from this. So whatever we can do to help keep people safe, I'm all for it.
Thank you. Ms. Levinson?
Yes, I'm in agreement with reaching out as well. I think there are more committee reports that are actually going to say the same thing. But one of the important things is it's enhancing our involvement and engagement. So sometimes out of a very bad thing, disruptive thing, there are good things that come out of it. And I think that's something that should be included in the letter, is that the participation has skyrocketed virtually in so many different aspects. And that's really been a plus to have that kind of input from more people. So I think that should be something that we include in it as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bartleman?
There is one way after we do all this that this could be modified. All of the committees have bylaws that we created as a board, and we could amend the number in the bylaws of the quorum. That is something we could do, and we could even put in there that it's during the COVID time, or maybe it's something we keep because, like Lori said, we're in a new world, and people like the meetings online, and we get more participation. So if all of that fails, we have the power as a board, and the advisories would be willing to amend all of their bylaws and put them all in a package. So you only need 2 or 3 people physically present for the quorum and the others online. That is totally within our power as a board, and it's something that we should look into. I know we have to go through our process, but we establish all the committees, we establish the number of people, the quorums, how they're appointed. So I think we try to look at it and see if we can do something like that. And Barbara will know if we would be able to do that. And I know some of the advisories have looked into that.
Ms. Myrick?
Thank you. Ms. Bartleman, I just want to be clear because I'm not sure if I heard you correctly.
That's okay.
You can't have 2 quorums. You can't have a quorum for people present and then an overall quorum for voting. So yes, you're exactly right. You could change the overall quorum. Right now, all of our committees are 50% plus 1. You could change that to anything you wanted to change it to. I just would make sure you are aware that if you lower the quorum, like to 30% of, instead of 50% of the membership, then the people that are going to be making the decision is about 15% of the total membership. You can change the quorum, absolutely, and you could do that in an emergency order if you wanted to, and then come back and do that. But I think you need to be very clear about the level of reducing it, and you would have a very few people being able to. I'm not saying that's what would happen, because people are meeting remotely, but to be able to make decisions on behalf of the whole committee.
And I guess it's something the board would have to weigh, but I know the idea didn't come from me. It
Okay.
came from advisory
So we've
members.
now-
So you guys can look into that later, but I wanted to put that on
Ms.
the table.
Alhadeff, did you want to?
Yes, thank you. I concur with my colleagues with sending the 2 letters. Thank you.
Thank you. And so I don't have interest in pursuing a reduction in the quorum. So to Ms. Bartleman's point, if I see interest in that, we can pursue that as well. But I'm not seeing, I see basically 2 of my colleagues then who have interest. I don't see a quorum I'm sorry, not a quorum. I do not see the majority of the board having interest. So at this time, we're not going to pursue that, but I do believe we will go ahead. Mr. Renzi, you and I will send a letter to the governor, and to Ms. Levinson's point, we will certainly acknowledge the fact that the participation has been more engaging and enhanced, and that would be an opportunity for us to be able to focus on this positivity of being able to have this additional flexibility from the governor. And with that, yes, Ms. Good.
Could, I don't know if you find value in it, but maybe that the letter include, because I think various committees have.
I was going to say, so, and that's what I was going to finish, is my intent, after we hear all of them, that we would have as backup to the letter motions that were made by each and every committee, so that it's not just our voice, but it's actually those from the community, and we can identify the names of those committees as well as their specific. So Dr. Neesmith, I'll just repeat what, for the letter, if you could make sure to please compile those motions from each committee that state this request, so that we can put that as additional information that's shared with the letter to the governor. Thank you. And also, I believe there was also a general consensus that Ms. Myrick, we would pursue the avenue of reaching out to the Attorney General for advice on this as well. So with that, I think we're going to move on then. Dr. Neesmith, you had another report for us, correct?
Yes, Madam Chair. The next report comes from the Technology Advisory Committee from Beth Ann Carr, who's the chair. We operated our meeting under our new bylaws and membership, and thanks to the ability to use Teams, we met quorum. The committee was updated on the school support plan for the in-person learning now taking place. There was a concern about how to charge computers during the day, and a well-thought-out plan was presented to the committees with practical costs and safety concerns addressed. A memo was sent to parents requesting that students change their passwords. Since that time, there have been issues with how the students can change their own passwords, especially at the elementary level. A memo was sent to update students on this procedure. In relation to Teams-related issues discussed were students can mute their teacher. The solution is not to give students the presenter role. The district has been working through issues with Microsoft, which has given a clear commitment to having greater stability within the next 2 weeks from the date of October 12th. Relative to classroom issues, BTU has collected the following tech-related issues since schools have opened. Students forgetting their laptop at home, especially the youngest students. Laptops not working with no replacement. Password issues as previously described. Assessing and speed of the school internet. Headphone issues. Delays caused by teachers needing to attend to students at home and school separately. Parents are sending their kids to school, and then the parent is logging in to watch while their child is physically in school. Classroom cameras. Polycom Studio USB cameras have been delivered to all secondary schools for teacher deployment. They are plug and play and do not require any additional technical setup. The use of the cameras is voluntary. However, any unused cameras will be made available to elementary schools in each zone. Relative to WAN fiber network, the redesign of the school's wide area network, or WAN, is progressing. This will build network resiliency and contain costs. A major milestone is June 2021, when it is projected that the larger schools will be completed. Automated help system. A new initiative called Ask Ed, which is a knowledgeable base, or FAQ bot, was presented. IT is working on a design that will be used at first for issues related to working with teams, but in the future can be built out to include many more helpful topics. If someone cannot find the help they need, they're asked to contact the Microtech. Regarding the Miami Dolphins grant, the Miami Dolphins have granted $100,000 for elementary school laptops for elementary. And Madam Chair, that is the committee report for the Technology Advisory Committee. I'll then proceed to the ESC Advisory Council, which is provided by Ms. Jackie Luscombe, who's the chair. Again, this is a report to the Broward School Board meeting for today. From Jackie Luscombe, ESC Advisory Council Chair. The ESC Advisory's monthly general meeting takes place tomorrow, Wednesday, 21st, where our guests will include Dr. Wanza, Chief of School Performance and Accountability, with whom we look forward to discussing some of the key topics of concern that are arising for our ESC community. Among those concerns are the fact that the district does not have enough speech-language pathologists to support student needs, resulting in some students having been left without speech services for the first quarter and breach of their IEPs. Not only have students gone without services, but their parents have gone without communication and have been left in the dark by their schools as to why. The Evergreen Report of 2014, which resulted from an independent review of ESC services in Broward, not only highlighted gaps in the district's communication structure, but also, among other issues, made recommendations around the retention and recruitment of speech pathologists and their funding and caseloads. It would be our hope that school board members will look into the reasons why there are now too few speech therapists in Broward to meet demands, the caseloads they are struggling under, and any resources needed for the district to meet its mandatory obligations to students with disabilities. Another feedback arising from our parent community includes concerns over the lack of privacy for students with disabilities who have returned to campus but are having their services delivered in communal settings with peers around them listening in. Also concerns at the fact that children as young as pre-kindergarten age in ESC self-contained classrooms are receiving instruction via Teams even if they are in the same room as their teacher. The reason for this may range from teachers simply not knowing that they are not actually expected to teach this way, to teachers needing more support, direction, and resources to make it happen. Parents have much appreciation for the difficulties of reopening schools in a pandemic and for the teacher and support staff who have found creative workarounds to assist students with special needs. Our concerns lie with those who, for whatever reason, still need help to do so. We look forward to discussing these and other issues with Dr. Wanza tomorrow, along with Kathy Coate, Chief of Communications for BCPS. Simone Hollingsworth and her team from the Exceptional Student Learning Support Division will also be present and have continued to liaise with advisory to provide a communication path with parents. The future efficacy of ESC advisory will be compromised by the expiration of Governor DeSantis' executive order that has to this point allowed us to meet and conduct business virtually during the pandemic. In previous reports to you and from the other advisories and committees, it has been suggested that the school board could invoke its emergency powers under Policy 1001 to adapt quorum requirements in a way that would be safer and more workable. General Counsel's latest ruling on this matter, delivered late last night, is noted and will be discussed at our advisory meeting tomorrow. Advisories are comprised of volunteers who should not be compelled to risk the health and safety of their families in order to serve. Many members have children with underlying conditions and medical fragilities. Bylaws that would have made ESC Advisory a fixed 21-member body, which we presented for ratification in 2016, has still not yet been passed by the school board 4 years later. This means that we still operate under an old system whereby the general membership changes month by month, and therefore so does the quorum. That quorum can sometimes be as many as 30 people, a number that will be impossible to oblige in our current pandemic situation. The school board reopened schools while also maintaining the e-learning model on the basis that parents should have a choice of setting in which to have their children educated. By the same token, volunteers should have a choice of a safe setting in which we serve them. Thank you. And Madam Chair, the last committee report comes from the Parent Involvement Task Force from the Chair, Mary Furtick. The Parent Community Involvement Task Force met October 12, 2020. We received the task force's most recent initiatives with Parent University and discussed 3 events which will take place over the next several months. The Next Parent University program, the Nonprofit Forum, and Empowering Parents, a conference in 4 languages. Throughout the meeting, the possibilities of increasing and enhancing parent and community participation through virtual meetings and conferences became a topic of conversation. A few examples include the success of the virtual Parent University webinars, which saw an increase in participation from the virtual format. The opportunity to offer an exchange of information through the chat option was also valuable, as many questions and comments we shared in this online format. Community members shared examples of how more parents and community members were able to attend SAC, SAF, and other district meetings because they are held virtually. The Parent and Community Task Force passed the following motion: to request the School Board of Broward County to direct the superintendent to direct Broward County Public Schools Legislative Affairs and legal staff to advocate for the ability to hold virtual meetings with a virtual quorum for advisory boards in order to enhance stakeholder participation. This was moved by Andrea Kavanaugh and seconded by Janet Bravo. And Madam Chair, that concludes our committee reports for today.
Thank you very much. I apologize, Rocco. He wanted to be able to share a comment with us when we were having a discussion earlier about a response to many of the comments. Rocco?
Yes, it's completely fine. I'm glad to be able to get this comment in. I was going to comment on the possibility of meeting this online, continuing for committees, and I would like to express my support for the 2 letters recommended by Ms. Myrick, because as student advisors, we're responsible for appointing students to committees, and I predict that if committees are forced to meet in person, interest in serving on these committees would substantially decrease, and in addition, it's just not right to take away this opportunity for students to put in their input while not having to risk the lives of themselves and their entire family. So, yes, I would like to express my support for these 2 letters.
Thank you, Rocco, for speaking up and making sure that our students' voices were heard in the discussion as well. So I appreciate that, and I think that is the direction that we will be going. With that, we are going to move on from our committee reports, and I believe Ms. Bartleman is not going to be able to stay with us for the end of the meeting, where she would have otherwise shared some thoughts, so she had asked if I would give her the opportunity to make a statement.
Thank you. So today is actually my last official meeting because I have to resign to run on November 3rd. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank everyone in this room for your leadership and everything you do. I know it's a personal sacrifice for each and every one of you, and you leave your families every day, and you work 10, 12-hour days. I'm sure some of you have been working 22-hour days, and we've been through a lot together, and I just want to thank you all so much and know that I recognize how hard you work. I want to thank the board members for their leadership. It's been a tough year. It's been a weird year to leave with everything going on. But Donna, thank you for your leadership. Mr. Runcie, thank you for your leadership over this last year and working with you. You've done a lot of good for students, so I want to thank you for that. And more importantly, I just want to thank all of the teachers and employees of this county and the parent advisories. I'm getting texts from Jackie and Debbie and Carolyn and everybody now, and I'm going to really miss all of you. It has been an honor to serve this community for 16 years and a privilege to serve all of you. And I just want to thank you all so much. And I'm going to miss all of you. I'm going to miss this building from everyone. Just everyone who works here has become part of a family. So I just want to thank you guys so much. And a special thank you to my secretary who's walking in now, Thelma Robinson, who is truly, truly amazing and has been my right-hand woman and my friend and my partner. And to the student advisors, thank you guys. And that's all I want to say. It's been an honor to serve every single one of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bartleman. So at this time, I'm going to take a pause. Something that we typically do at the beginning of the service of our student advisors is we acknowledge them, we announce them more formally, and we provide you with a small gift on behalf of the board and the district. So at this moment, I'd like to do it a little bit more officially. I'm going to read a little bit about each of you. We did initially welcome you in without being able to provide you this opportunity. So if you would allow me, for Gianna Elman from West Broward High School. She is a senior at West Broward High School. She is the Senior Class Office Senator, the Student Government Senator, the National Honor Society inductee, a Student Second Vice President of PTSA. She has volunteered over 450 service hours and enjoys serving her community. She is proud to be a voice to represent students throughout Broward County, and she is currently setting up district roundtables with high schools and appointing students to our district communities. Gianna, thank you so much for your service and sharing the voice of students with the board and Mr. Runcie. And to Rocco Diaz, our Fort Lauderdale alternate student advisor. Rocco is the senior at Fort Lauderdale High School. He has been a passionate participant in speech and debate since middle school and has served as an officer for the past year. The activity has taught him the importance of advocating for accountable leadership. As the alternate student advisor, he will not hesitate to listen to the concerns of his fellow students, teachers, and staff, and he is currently assisting with appointing students to the district committees. And with that, I have just a small gift to be able to provide each of you, so I'm going to just step down for one second. Here we go. You can sit there for a second. Okay, so at this time, we are going to take some of our initial items until we get to our 12 o'clock time for our speakers. So with that, we have already addressed item G3. If I could have a motion and a second, please, on G4. Moved by Ms. Brinkworth, second by Ms. Alhadeff. Audience input on G4. You could just please again announce your name. Please come, just announce your name, and then you'll be provided 3 minutes to speak. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Trevor Allen. I'm here to speak about something that's about to be submitted today regarding a suspension they're trying to do. I stopped the shooting at my school, and what happened was we got called to get 2 girls that brought a gun on campus. When I retrieved the firearm from the young lady, we had brought them back to the main office where one of the girls had left the office, tried to leave campus, and we had got her back in custody. Upon trying to get her back into the office, I was being, the guidance counselor and another staff member were stopping me from conducting a search because the girl had left our site. When we had got the girl back into the office, they got in front of me and the student, and I'm trying to explain to them, I'm trying to do a search to make sure that this girl that got away don't have another firearm on them. I kind of got upset and I struck the wall, which left a hole in the wall. My intentions was to protect my staff, protect my students, and make sure everybody go home. Now I'm being recommended for suspension because I hit the door. All I wanted to do was to make sure there was not another shooting on the Broward County campus, and I promised my staff and my students and the parents that everybody's gonna go home. So that's all I have to say about that right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further audience input on the G4 item? Hearing none to my colleagues, is there any discussion on G4? Ms. Brinkworth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to take a moment of personal privilege and extend a heartfelt appreciation and gratitude and congratulations to Gail Fallon, my administrative assistant, who is retiring. And she has served this district faithfully for 27 years. And I have to tell you, when I came into this role, she looked at me and she said, "So, are you going to keep me?" And I said, "Am I going to keep you what?" And I have to say that in the 6 years that I have served this community, she has gone above and beyond. And we have gone through some really difficult times, and I'm going to miss her terribly. And I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brinkworth. Yes, Ms. Good.
Thank you, Ms. Brinkworth. And just to add, you know, Ms. Fallon was the veteran, so to speak, up on the 14th floor and has provided great guidance to many of our own personal board member assistants. And she really has had great compassion and love for what she does in helping the public and certainly in serving with Ms. Brinkworth. I also want to wish her the very best in her retirement. She certainly deserves many blessings in her life as she continues on to her next journey. And I too want to thank her for everything she's done and for everything that she's assisted, even in my own district. So I thank Ms. Fallon for her efforts. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Levinson.
Yes, I'd just like to add to that. Gail sits right outside my office, and she has been invaluable to me over the years as well, and to my assistant in helping, knowing where to go in the districts, and she's been here for so long. And I just want to say she's the matriarch up there, so she's going to be missed sorely, and want to thank her for all the assistance that she's given others in the board office, and wish her a wonderful retirement.
Thank you. Ms. Bartleman.
I also want to thank Gail. We've been together 16 years. She was my backup for the majority of those years and has become a true friend. And it's been wonderful to work with her. And I really wish her health and happiness. And she needs this time because she'll be with her grandbaby. And I'm just so happy for her. And she is like the last of the originals. So she's really going to be missed. And so, Gail, I'll miss you, and thank you, and I wish you health and happiness.
Thank you. Ms. Murray.
Yes, Gail and I go way back, you know. Sometimes we reminisce. We're two vintage seasoned people within the district. We've seen the best of times and the worst of times, and we've laughed and carried on about some of the crazy stories. You know, the system isn't what it was when we started off many years ago. It was much smaller, and the intimate relationship that so many of us had. But on the 14th floor, we're a unique family, and Gail has always been there for everybody, and I certainly wish her all the best as she jumps into a new chapter in her life, and there's plenty of living to go on after she leaves the 14th floor. Good luck, Gail. Thank you.
Thank you. And Gail has been not only a team player, but certainly a leader on the 14th floor for many, many years. And she has always done it through kindness. She is just a kind soul through and through, and no matter what has ever been asked of her, she has always been more than happy to step up and to do it, but to always do it with a smile on her face, as if she appreciates each and every day of the opportunity of being able to serve here at the district. And I can truly say she has been a servant to all that she's worked with. So thank you, Gail, very much. And we will all clearly miss you. So thank you. Any additional comments on G4? Hearing none, all those in favor of G4, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. G4 passes unanimously. May I please have a motion and a second on CC 1, 2, and 4.
So move.
Moved by Dr. Osgood, second by Ms. Brinkworth. Is there audience input on CC 1, 2, and 4?
Yes, on CC1, Natalie Lynch Walsh, Plantation, Florida. Because I don't just know facilities, I also learned quite a bit about ESC the past couple of years. So, at the workshop, there were the policies and procedures that get reported to the state. They're very general. And when I read those, I can't tell from what I read whether changes as recommended by the Collaborative Education Network were actually implemented. The only way you would know that is to see the procedures that staff involved in IEP meetings and evaluation processes, to see those procedures. Because what you tell the state and what people are actually trying to follow are two very different things. And there were 2 failures cited in the Collaborative Education Network, which coincidentally was written by the same ESE experts that did the Evergreen report. They just tried to kind of hide or obscure that fact. It's the same people. They said, during Cruz's November 2016 IEP meeting, the IEP team failed to correctly state options, obtain consent, and follow statutory requirements. So in the board backup from the workshop, you had section C, individual, the IEP, page 109. So first question, what procedures do employees involved with IEPs receive? And they should all be signing off that they receive them, they understand them, so that you can hold them accountable when they don't follow them, because understand that this was a huge cause and contributing factor to what happened more than 2 years ago. Because that's where he revoked consent, and that was staff failing to do their jobs. Then, when he tried to get back in to go back to Cross Creek in April 2017, staff failed to follow rules and timeline for determining eligibility.
Okay, but Dr. Natalie Lynch-Walsh, we're on policy specific. This is
right. I'm pulling it from the stuff you just said at the workshop.
Could you pause the time for a
You
second?
don't want to hear
Please,
it, but it is
So, Dr.
absolutely
Natalie
on
Lynch-Walsh,
point.
what I'm going to ask is that you speak to policy discussion. This is not anything that you can bring up on a topic that happens to relate to policy, but specifically to the policy conversation itself as we are looking to make changes and pass policy, please. Thank you.
And you're trying to make sure that you
Dr.
don't
Neesmith.
have another MSD tragedy, I hope. And the way you do that is to make sure your
Pause
policies
the time, and I'm about to cut
procedures-
off the microphone. What I'm telling you is, I need the discussion to be specific to policy. That is actually what I'm saying.
My next sentence will have the word
Yes, Dr.
policy in it.
Neesmith. That is not what I have asked. I am clearly stating the discussion needs to be about the policy we are voting on and not just to draw anything in topic that you could relate back to policy, but rather the policy we are discussing. Thank you. Dr. Neesmith.
Okay, this is part of critical thinking, but anyway, so if you see sections H1 and H2 under general policies and procedures regarding revoking consent, it doesn't seem to address specifically how it ties back to Collaborative Educational Network recommendation number 4. So again, the question is, what procedures do employees involved in determining eligibility get? From policy flows procedures, and if it isn't in policy, because policies are more general, then you need to make sure it's in your procedures. So, and you also need an update on the implementation of the 8 Collaborative Educational Network recommendations. I'm sorry that you don't like me exercising free speech and where it takes you, but what I was saying is directly related to those policies.
Thank you. Additional public input on CC 1, 2, and 4? Seeing none to my colleagues, is there any input on CC 1, 2, and 4? Hearing none, all those in favor of CC 1, 2, and 4, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Item CC 1, 2, and 4 pass unanimously. May I please have a motion and a second on CC 3?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Brinkworth, second by Dr. Osgood. Audience input on CC 3. Hearing none to my colleagues. Any input on CC 3? I apologize, as I realized that I didn't call out my items when we were talking earlier. I was just noting everyone else's, so
I was wondering.
those of you who are tracking and you realize CC 3 hadn't come up, I apologize because I was so focused on making sure I didn't miss others that I didn't mention mine. So on page 9, this is under makeup work. We don't need to have a lengthy discussion. I've shared my views on this in the past, but I just need to include, I feel compelled to share as to why I'm going to vote no on the policy. But for me, under it's BA at the top of item 9, makeup work shall be accepted for full credit. We're now changing it from allowed to shall be accepted for full credit for excused, unexcused, and external. To me, that totally usurps the power of a teacher to be able to impact, influence, and to determine a grade for a student based on their specific class. And I can tell you that when I was a high school teacher, I was called in a couple of times by my principal, and he questioned some of what I had graded, but ultimately the decision was mine to make. We discussed it on both occasions. He actually agreed, having now heard my concept as to why I either supported or did not support something in my specific grading of a student. And ultimately, again, the decision was mine. And just as a principal does not have the ability to go in and to change a grade, in my view, by making this in our policy, we are usurping the opportunity for a teacher to be able to make those decisions. So I don't want to lengthen the conversation. I know we've had it. I so certainly support my colleagues in making their decision, and I certainly understand the views of the public that have come forward, as well as on many of our committees who have shared their concerns in this area. So, Ms. Levinson.
Not to belabor the point, I was not going to bring it up either. My views are very well known about this. For the same reason, I will be voting against. Thank you.
So all those in favor of CC3, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. No. So it passes 6 to, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 to 2. Correct? Thank you. May I please have a motion and a second on CC5?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Brinkworth, second by Dr. Osgood. Audience input on CC5. Seeing none, to my colleagues on CC5, I have Ms. Good.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I had reached out to Ms. Myrick prior to the meeting, especially listening to some of the conversations that we had over masks and some of the topics of conversations that were held during that topic. It came to my mind that I think we need to mimic a little bit about the virtual setting that students have at home, as if they were in the classroom. And what came to mind were I was somewhat concerned about, the opportunities for students to be participating in a virtual classroom and have a display of inappropriate in the background. And so in conversations with Ms. Myrick, again, something that we wouldn't allow in a classroom setting, I think, as one board member, should coincide within the virtual classroom setting. I wanted to share just very brief language that we may be able to include under, I think it's page 6, I believe, under Code of Ethics of Computer Network and Online Telecommunications Users. Is that correct?
I'm sorry,
Ms.
what
Myrick?
section?
Would that be section, I have it on page 6 of 8, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to share this language with you all for consideration on when participating in Broward County School Boards and/or Microsoft Teams Network or other virtual platforms for any purpose, including but not limited to public online virtual classrooms. Users will not display backgrounds that promote a political party, political ideas, and/or individuals seeking elected office. Just, we had discussed a variety of things. This is more in line with what's already here, and we didn't want to go too far from what's been discussed in other areas. I don't know if Ms. Myrick could add to that comment, but I think we want to provide our school administration and teachers the tools necessary so they don't have to make judgment calls when they are conducting virtual classrooms. And having an opportunity to bring something to light and then having to make a decision. I think they have enough on their plates. So anything that we could provide to further clarify within this policy, I think would be beneficial. Ms. Myrick, did you have anything else?
Yes, I, agree with that, adding it somewhere in there. I think Mr. Dunn would like to add his comment too, but I think it would be appropriate.
Okay. I did not see your hand up, Mr. Dunn, but he is looking for a microphone. Mr. Dunn is in the back on the east side of the room. If we could provide him with a microphone. Turn his microphone on. There we go.
Thank you. Phil Dunn, Chief Information Officer. Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. If I may just briefly turn your attention to Section 6, subsection B, item 4, in the rules section. It recites currently, technology owned or leased by the school board shall not be used for advertising or otherwise communicating or promoting interests of any commercial, religious, political, or other non-district agency or organization except as permitted through board-approved agreements, etc. So I would assume that that fact pattern would be covered by that. Additionally, if something that may be more succinct and concern with policy is once we start saying, team's background, teams may release an avatar and someone may do something that violates the spirit of the code. So perhaps in section C, Code of Ethics, for prong F, where it says any use of telecommunication services or networks for illegal, inappropriate, obscene, or pornographic purposes shall be prohibited, we could simply insert the word political in that enumerated list.
So, Ms. Good, to your point, thank you, Mr. Dunn, for the feedback.
So I agree with 50% of what he said. Although I applaud you for I think it's kind of in line of what I was saying, the first comment. I don't think it's the same thing. At least it leads it to a little bit of interpretation. At least what I recall that being is that you should not be using your laptop for dissemination of political material or communication of political agendas. But that's not That's how it's always been utilized. Now, if that same language can now be interpreted differently, I was thinking more of a virtual classroom setting where someone may have political material showcased within a virtual classroom setting. So it's never been used, the language that you first stated, in that way. So I don't know if it's clear. And to your second recommendation, I'm totally okay with that. Adding those words, inserting those words, and I don't think it's substantial, and I'll allow Ms. Myrick to comment whether or not it's a substantial change. With regard, Ms. Myrick, to his first suggestion that the current language would cover my concern, do you feel it would, or is it very vague?
I think it's a mixed bag. I think that it covers it to some degree, but I would agree to add political down under the Code of Ethics 1F to maybe include political ideas or individuals running for election, and to put that in there. The term political is in here, so I think it is not a substantive change to the policy at this point, so I think the board could approve that today, and I could work with Mr. Dunn on the language of that, but yes, I would agree with that.
So, through the chair?
Yes.
So it was, I think what you mentioned was it on page 6 of 8 under the Code of Ethics?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes,
And it was
F.
under
Subsection F.
paragraph F?
F.
F
Yes,
as in
ma'am.
Frank, correct?
Yes.
And insert in there language pertaining to display of backgrounds promoting political, I mean, I think you made it a lot shorter. I just want to make sure the essence of what I'm saying is captured with regard to political party, political ideas, or seeking office. That would be somehow captured. And I apologize, with my dad's surgery, I wasn't able to engage in a large part when you were having other conversations about things like this, but I did want to bring it up to light today to prevent a situation from occurring moving forward. And since this is something that we're kind of talking about
Can I weigh in, Ms. Good?
Sure.
Just, because I think F is doing something a little bit different than it is under number 4. In section 6B, number 4.
Number 4, can you tell me what page again?
Yeah, that's at the very top of 6. That's what Mr. Dunn was referring to, the technology owned and leased by the, shall not be used for advertising or otherwise communicating or
That's
promoting.
why I missed what he had said. It's what, I'm sorry.
6, and it's at the very top of 6. So it's 6B4. So 6B4 is specific to it being school board technology, right? So if someone's using their own device, then it's not being covered. So I think, Mr. Dunn, did you want to correct me?
Sorry to interrupt, if I may, through the chair. I could interpret 6B4 more broadly because it does use the word technology, owned or leased by the district, wherein Teams is a platform that is leased by the district. In our contracting, we refer to it as our tenant, analogizing it to physical property.
Okay, so if that's the case, that actually makes this easier.
Okay.
I almost think we can achieve what it is you're looking for.
Okay.
By in that 4, by saying, or otherwise communicating or promoting, comma, including backgrounds or visual objects.
That's fine.
The interest of the commercial. In other words, just by inserting in that section, if the technology includes then anything Teams related,
Okay.
we can probably just say something like including, so that we're calling it out. It's very clear then for teachers, but at the same time, we're not modifying anything to the point of needing to further discuss, have this go back for additional workshops. Do you think that would be?
No, I think that's fine. I think anything we can do to at least bring it to the attention of the policy, I think would be strong. So I would move what you just suggested, and if there's not a second, then there's not consensus of the group, but at least, thank you for allowing me to bring it up.
Yes, thank you for the point. It's been moved and second by Dr. Osgood. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, is there any audience input on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. And now back to the larger conversation. Is there any additional discussion? Yes, Ms. Good.
And so can, once it's finalized and you work out the exact, can we just all get an email with the copy and it be posted online to take the place of the one that's currently there?
Yes,
So it's on record?
that will happen, yes.
Okay, thank you
And
so
we'll
much.
call this out. Dr. Wanza can make sure that principals are aware of this change in the policy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All those in favor of CC5 as amended, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. CC5 passes unanimously. We'll take one more item. May I please have a motion and a second on items EE 1, 3, 4, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dr. Osgood, second by Ms. Olidaff. Is there audience input on items EE 1, 3, 4, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14?
Yes, EE3, department furniture. Looks like some of this is included in the SMART program. In the past, we've heard stories about new principals moving in, tossing out perfectly good furniture and getting themselves all kinds of schmancy stuff. So I truly hope that the furniture that's being replaced, that's hitting the SMART program and possibly bond dollars, and even if it's not, it's all taxpayer money, is being done responsibly and within board policy, and that there is oversight as far as that goes. Was EE8 on that list?
Yes.
Okay, EE8, similar issue. Don't know if culinary arts is included in here, but there's a fairly long list district-wide as to schools that have culinary arts programs. So the hope here would be that they're all being treated equitably and that that list is being reviewed, and that if you can, and whatever resources are being given to one, that they all have the opportunity to use. And I think that's my EE items. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional audience input on the EE items on the floor? My colleagues? Seeing none, all those in favor of EE 1, 3, 4, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The above listed items pass unanimously. At this time, we are going to take our speakers. This is the time on the agenda when our school board members will hear from speakers. Each listed speaker will be allowed 3 minutes. How many individuals do we have that are here? 2 in person, and we have written comments. Mr. Moquin, thank you very much. Speakers are reminded to demonstrate proper decorum, and school board members will not discuss or take official action on any speaker comments. Any persons present who wish to speak and are not listed as speakers on the agenda may be heard at the conclusion of the regular school board meeting at the discretion of the chair. No heckling, shouting comments from the audience, verbal outbursts, or any other disruptive behavior shall be permitted. No signs or placards shall be allowed in the board meeting. No derogatory comments using the person's proper name shall be permitted, and persons exiting the board meeting shall do so quietly, please. Further, at the conclusion of the public speakers, the chair will provide an opportunity for the superintendent or his cabinet, at his discretion, to provide comments regarding any subject matter or issues raised by public speakers. Additionally, the superintendent may have members of his staff speak to individual public speakers in an effort to address his or her concerns and provide any follow-up to public speaker concerns back to the board. So at this time, I will begin by calling our first speaker. Thank you, Juan, very much. We have David Fleischer. Please do make sure to keep your masks on during public speaking, as well as to state your name at the beginning of your comments. Thank you.
Will Dr. Wanza be joining us? I see she dipped out.
Can you begin the time, please?
Is she going to, can you answer my question before I start the time?
We don't have a required attendance in the room for
I
public
think it's
speakers.
extremely important based on the allegations I've made and what I'm going to say here today that she is here.
Okay. So again, if you could stop the time. Any derogatory comments are made to the title of the position, and anything else you're certainly welcome to direct to the chair. Thank you. Dr. Neesmith?
Can I get a reset on time?
Certainly. Please, Dr. Neesmith.
Thank you. As I stated in previous meetings, I made a public records request trying to find evidence of any investigation regarding the allegations I raised. The principal, Hala Darbar, inappropriately took hundreds of thousands of dollars from teachers and from students, totaling over $1 million, and was given nothing. This is troublesome because there was indeed an OSPA investigation completed. I only know this because I spoke to the current individual completing the SIU investigation. He told me that within the September 4th OSPA summary of conference between Todd LePace and Principal Darbar admitted she did not pay teachers for covering classes from 2012 to 2019. This is no longer an allegation, but a fact. Let me say that again. OSPA, Alan Strauss, Dr. Wanza, Veda Hudge, and Todd LePace, who are in charge of district accountability, knew that Principal Darbar took hundreds of thousands of dollars from teachers from 2012 to 19 and did nothing. What might be even more amazing is that I marched up here for months with these allegations, and Dr. Wanza, who's normally sitting right here in front of you, knew it was true and just sat there.
So I'm going to stop the clock. So I'm
don't
going
you
to
dare.
deem that as, excuse me, as the chair, I will stop the clock. Those are being deemed as derogatory comments based on the level of accusation.
Tell me,
I am letting you know, Mr. Fleischer, at this moment,
memo.
at this moment, if you continue, I'm going to ask you to please conclude your comments.
We
So
need to have a
please
discussion
have-
then about what
Mr. Fleischer,
derogatories and
I'm
what
speaking
facts
as
are.
soon- This is your last warning. And the next time you speak over me, I have stopped your time. I am going to stop your comments for this meeting. So, again, derogatory comments are not to be made. You are more than welcome to address the individual by their title. Otherwise, please address them to the chair.
So I need to understand,
you.
is a derogatory
Dr.
comment a
Neesmith?
fact? So if I say Hitler killed 6 million people, is that derogatory or is that
This is
a
your
fact?
time, Mr. Fleischer.
Okay, I'm going to keep stating facts. If you cut me off, you cut me off. But I'm not going to be silenced here because you have an investigation that I am now citing, and you're saying I cannot state that Wanza knew, that Hudge knew, Strauss knew, and that the principal, Hala Darbar, admitted she did not pay a teacher. And you're telling me I cannot say that. Disgusting.
So, Dr. Neesmith, please stop the
Disgusting.
comment. What? I did not stop you on those comments. I stopped you when you were making an accusation against Dr. Wanza. So again, I'm going to let you know, I am allowing you to state people's names as you are stating factual information. As soon as you go to a derogatory comment, I will now cut you off from the rest of your comments. That is my clarification. I'm not going to clarify further. Thank you.
So again, it appears the board does not care about getting to the truth. So thank you very, very much. We're concerned more about how I say things than the actual content therein. Very well done, board. Nicely done. So here we go. We need to question and re-examine the employment of an individual who I can't say, who clearly does not respect the position and the obligations that come with it. We need to question and re-examine the employment of the principal in charge of running a high school who's supposed to be an ethical leader, a role model for the administration they're training as future leaders for the district, who is entrusted with the well-being of over 100 employees and thousands of students, who then abuses her position and intentionally violates her contract and does not even have the decency to compensate her employees. You also need to ask where the money went and how did it pass through audits. And as the board, you're now at a crossroads and you have to ask yourself a few questions. You have to ask yourself, who do you serve? Who do you care about? Do you actually want to get to the bottom of this? And are you going to hold people accountable? I can't even tell you guys how upset I am right now. I have so much more to say here. You guys have been cutting me off, trying to get me not to say it. It's so disgusting. At the end of the day, here's what I'm demanding. I'm demanding that you hold people accountable. You preach parity and fairness. You tried to go after somebody and gave him a 10-day suspension for an $80 microwave. What's hundreds of thousands of dollars in a cover-up worth? You guys got some real decisions to make here, and I'm going to make sure you guys are accountable.
Thank you. I have Dr. Natalie Lynch-Walsh. Just 1 second. He's going to clean the area for you. Thank you, Juan.
Dr. Natalie Lynch-Walsh, not sure this will go much better. Okay, so first up, children are taught in Broward County Public Schools when they have an argument and they're taking a written test that they support their argument with facts and examples. It should be no different when someone's speaking publicly and uses facts and examples to back up their argument. Just because you don't like them and they are not things you want aired publicly does not make them any less a fact or an example relevant to the discussion. As far as quorum goes, none of the advisory groups were advocating for reducing the number of quorum because they realized the inherent issue in there. I'm glad that you finally took some action, but understand that it's been more than a month that this has been brought to your attention, and now we're going to have informational meetings in November when that could have potentially been avoided. And it came a little too late because I can tell you from sitting in the Policy 1.7 work group meeting, they're getting the message that you don't care. All right, now, some terms that I think everyone needs to review. Let's start with malfeasance. From Cornell Law University's definition, malfeasance, intentional conduct that is wrongful or unlawful, especially by officials or public employees. Malfeasance is at a higher level of wrongdoing than nonfeasance, failure to act where there was a duty to act, that's nonfeasance, or misfeasance, conduct that is lawful but inappropriate. And that's been happening in spades, and in order to have made that G3 item work before you pulled it, it would have called for malfeasance. Perjury. State Statute 837.06, false official statements. Whoever knowingly makes a false statement in writing with the intent to mislead a public servant in the performance of his or her official duty shall be guilty of a misdemeanor of the second degree, and it is punishable, and there's additional statutes related to that. So, nonfeasance, when you have an employee violating one of your board policies and also by threatening staff violating a state statute, and you do nothing, that would be nonfeasance. When you sit there and do nothing. Examples of perjury and malfeasance are emails, and you just don't understand how many that public records request captured. Your general counsel doesn't understand state statutes, board policy, doesn't value the task force. Your superintendent encouraged the executive director of capital programs to violate public records law. And there's a lot more in there.
Thank you. Mr. Moken, you said that there's one written comment. Dr. Neesmith?
Yes, Madam Chair, the written comment comes from Mr. Michael Sabola. And he provided a very, very long comment, but to stay within our 3-minute time limit, I have pretty much kind of calculated where that end stop is.
I'm sorry, it's a long comment, you said?
Very, very long comment.
Okay, so if you can just start the clock as you read it, that would be perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. The word genocide means senior genocide, as when any government declares a national strategy of herd immunity when 1 in 11 or over 75 that get COVID-19 die. To repeat, 1 out of every 11 persons over 75 that gets COVID-19 is dying. That is the very definition of mass genocide. The CDC has issued new guidelines in the past few days on the need for surveillance testing and for classroom air cleaners. The School District of New York has a random surveillance testing program already in place. What is the district going to do about these two new issues? Finally, the city has admitted that it has been downplaying the central tenet of epidemic science, the need of random surveillance testing to determine R, the rate of community spread. R can then be narrowed to produce what the rate of spread is within individual schools and classrooms when combined with adequate tracing. This enabling one to know, 1, when is it truly safe to open schools when R is less than 1, and 2, as a means of determining the effectiveness of mitigation efforts so that instead of closing schools, alternatives such as pod scheduling for classes may be considered. R less than 1 means that every person infected, that on average, less than 1 person will be infected. Will the superintendent, administration, and school board members commit today to follow science, and if so, then follow these new CDC guidelines to deploy a Broward-wide random testing program? I worked with and built numerous high-tech clean rooms using HEPA air filters for the manufacture of computer memory disks. I've manufactured and engineered air monitoring equipment for sale worldwide that I'm sure the district has used and used computer memory disks I've had in hand in as well, although that was quite a while ago. More importantly, I've spent many thousands of hours modeling, programming, and running artificial agent simulations of epidemic spread in model populations. 5 years ago, the board added a rule to muzzle its own speech when responding to public inquiries when I pointed out that it did not actually have a published guideline on the matter. I had a threatening tone back then, and the board wished to make it clear it felt no compunction to answer questions in real time from the public, especially in regards to subjects it knows the public responds to emotionally, such as the number of children self-harming by cutting themselves, which public comment was even censored from airing on Beacon. However, the board's rule says only that it is under no obligation to respond, not that the board cannot respond if it wishes to. Many times the board has in fact responded to speakers and even bantered, as you know, although admittedly quite infrequently and always without proper agreement beforehand to do so. Incidentally, the board can also grant more speaking time by mutual agreement whenever it wishes. I mention this because what I bring you today is a matter of extreme immediacy dealing with the life and death that requires not just discussion, but the board's immediate action this very day. As stated 5 years plus ago, the board has powers it properly used. And Madam Chair, that was the only public speaker submission for this meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, we will continue with our items. I will just mention that at 12:45, we do have an attorney-client closed-door session, but we have a half an hour between now and then to move forward with additional items. Another item that actually I had intended to speak to, I will pull it with EE5. My comment is short, but if we could have a motion on EE2 and EE5. Moved by Ms. Brinkworth and second by Ms. Alhadeff. Thank you. Audience input on EE2 and EE5. Seeing none, all those, my colleagues, EE2. So I have for EE5, Ms. Alhadeff, who'd like to speak to EE5.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my question is, with this new law, how will we make sure with fidelity that the AEDs are being brought to every practice, workout, conditioning session, game, and what would the training look like? And also, are the AEDs going to be staying outside, and will they be housed in a specific type of container that will protect the AED? Maybe Mr. Sarah?
Okay, I'm sorry. I was running from upstairs.
Do you want me to repeat the question?
Yeah, I apologize.
Okay, sure. So with this new law and the ADs having to be at each of the practice sessions, games, conditioning sessions, how are we going to make sure that the people at each of these training sessions are properly trained, number one, and then two, that the AED is going to be there, and if the AED is going to be housed inside or outside, and with rain outside will be captured in a special unit of protection, and also, is there any opportunities for grants to help support the funding for these AEDs?
Okay, thank you for the question. Sean Sarah, Director of Athletics and Student Activities. With the Zach Martin legislation, we must have AED machines for all athletic activities effective June 21. That also requires all the training. So currently, when we hire a coach, they're required to take CPR and the necessary training around AED, if it's current, as well as first aid. If, when we move forward with the legislation, We must have, like, and I'll use high school as an example. If we have track and field, flag football, baseball, and softball all currently in session at the same time, we must have an AED machine for each of those events. We must also have a certified CPR AED trained person at those events as well. In the upcoming months, we will be working hard to make sure that all that certification is in place so that when the machines go into effect and they're there, that we have qualified, appropriate people to take care of a situation if it occurs. As far as the protection of the equipment, the vision right now is to dedicate a space on property that we can keep all of the AED machines together. It will be the role of the athletic trainer to disseminate those to the coaches on a daily basis. And we actually have done some research on protective bagging so that it's not in the traditional AED case. It will actually come with a weather-protected support where we can purchase that and include that instead of the actual box that it comes in. As far as grants are concerned, I'm unaware of any grants at this point. I'd have to work with staff in different departments because it's been an aligned effort to pull this off. So I'd have to get with the grant department and other district leaders to answer that question in the future.
And what was the date you said we had to be compliant by?
June of 2021, so I'm assuming that's June 1st.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see my colleagues with other questions. My question is actually on EE2. My question on EE2 is we're exercising the last of our renewals, as I understand it, in the contract for Blackboard. And so my question is, is this where we would need to begin the bid process at this point? I mean, this is a technology that's very specific. I guess I'm just looking for next steps to make sure that we have enough time from a technology perspective, and I don't know if Mr. Dunn would be the person to speak to this. I don't see him in the room. But I just want to make sure that if we are going to make any kind of change in this area, that we have enough time, that we don't get stuck in a position where we say we didn't have adequate time to be able to put in what was necessary to be able to go back out to bid, or if this is something which is just very specific and we would be looking just to renegotiate a new contract.
So through the chair, I'll start, and as it relates to the timing when we would go out and re-procure this, thank you.
Sorry.
Trying to eat
I know
and
it's,
talk. And
oh.
So this renewal will carry us through December 2021. We usually start the bidding process at a minimum 9 months early. So I believe that we have ample time to work with the IT department to figure out what's the best procurement method going forward. So I would assume that we would start those conversations probably as early next calendar year.
Okay, and so, and I just want to make sure that if we are going out and this is something that really is truly open to the market, that we get feedback if this is one of the bids that's coming back in terms of how successful this has been over that time frame, because we're doing this renewals without necessarily that specific feedback. So before it comes back to us for a new contract, if it will end up being with the same provider, that information is provided. So that was it for me. I said it would be short, so I appreciate that. All those in favor of EE2 and EE5, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. EE2 and EE5 pass unanimously. May I please have a motion and a second on EE6? Moved by Ms. Brinkworth, second by Dr. Osgood. And audience input on EE6. Seeing none, I have Ms. Levinson.
Thank you. I see Dr. Mancini is here, and I had mentioned that you gave a very good description here, but I kind of wanted to hear about it and how it integrates with what we already have. What's the advantage of this, and just a bigger picture on it.
Dr. Mancini, Nicole Mancini, Director of Elementary Learning. So the resources mentioned in this item are related to the Rising K program. The intention is to close any gaps of students in kindergarten as they come in, as well as any gaps that related due to COVID-19. The Watch and Learn is actually content-based science and social studies videos that students can watch and answer questions. Teachers can also use that in their classrooms or during the Rising K time with the students. It can also be done at home on their own with families. It was actually made available during the pandemic for free, so we actually had an opportunity firsthand to preview it. And we received many requests from families that it was something that helped their child at home through the pandemic, and we also found value with it as it related to continuing through this year.
Excuse me, you said that that's science and social studies?
Yes.
Science and social.
Yes, it's building comprehension. The Scholastic Literacy Pro avails 2,800 ebooks and over 10,000 quizzes, and also houses the readiness assessment pre and post for the program. So teachers can use the ebooks with the students in their classrooms or during the Rising K time, and students can also access the ebooks from home to read with their families. The Scholastic First is an adaptive program that provides explicit systematic instruction in phonics and phonemic awareness. It seems to be a very popular program that we've heard that kids will enjoy. And the kids navigate that. It's based on their pathway, and it will adjust. So as kids acquire skills, they will be moved to that next level. The last part, I believe, in this were the books, and each participating student is receiving 6 books, a family guide, and a journal that they can use as part of their home library.
So how does that integrate with what we already have? What do we have at that level right now doing any of these?
In the K-2 space, in terms of adding to instruction, other than what we've adopted in terms of instruction materials, this is geared very much towards the explicit literacy aspect of building those kids early on and adding to what the teachers are doing. The Scholastic First, as the students navigate through that adaptive pathway, it is generating actual lesson plans for the teachers to use when they're in the face-to-face setting, based on their students' needs, obviously.
Okay, and it says in here that the students will be given choice
Yes.
of being able to select. To me, that's very important.
Yes, the Scholastic Literacy Pro, once the students take like a motivational choice, I don't want to call it a quiz, but they get to go in and they select the types of books that they enjoy, and then the system recommends and selects based on their reading level what they should be what they could be reading based on their motivation and interest.
And does it concentrate on phonics?
The Scholastic First does.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Appreciate the added context.
Thank you very much. Seeing no additional comments from my colleagues, all those in favor of EE6, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. EE6 passes unanimously. May I please have a motion and a second on EE9?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Brinkworth, second by Dr. Osgood. Audience input on EE9? Seeing none, to my colleagues, I have Ms. Brinkworth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This also ties back to the previous item because selected book packs are going to be sent home. And in the previous item, that would happen for the kindergartners. How are you going to ensure that there isn't overlap?
There is not overlap?
There's not overlap, like the same book selection packets are not going to the same students.
Okay. Nicole Mancini, Director of Elementary Learning. The 6 books have been selected for the Rising K, and the books for Gears, this item, were already pre-selected, and they should not overlap.
Okay.
They could be the same students receiving additional books, though.
Yes, no, I understood that. I just wanted to make sure they weren't receiving duplicates of the books they were receiving from item EE6. And then, based on the comment that you just made, I guess I would understand that these books are in no way self-selected by the students?
These are not.
Yeah, and so I would just encourage, If there is an opportunity, I know that through some research work that was done in the past, Scholastic had provided almost like an online book fair opportunity for students to self-select, and the engagement of students with the text is much higher when they self-select the books. So if there's an opportunity for us to work with Scholastic, even if we serve as a pilot during this pandemic, I think that would be a great opportunity, as that importance of self-selection is integral to getting kids committed to reading. So thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you. Seeing any additional comments, not seeing any additional comments from my colleagues. All those in favor of EE9, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. EE9 passes unanimously. May I please have a motion and a second on EE15? Moved by Dr. Osgood, second by Ms. Al-Hadef. Audience input on EE15. Seeing none, to my colleagues, I have Ms. Levinson. Did I get that right? EE15? No, that's okay. This is the instructional materials.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I was trying to see what was different from when you brought it to us the last time. It was very hard to read what is here. So you did give a list here of things that were added. And I'm happy to see the brain pop. That is something I hear from a lot of teachers, that they find it very useful for their students. So I'm happy that that's included. I would like some explanation about the additional invoices and the freight.
Daryl Diamond, Director of Innovative Learning. When we first came to the board with the instructional materials adoption plan, we failed to include the freight that we needed for the world languages adoption. So that's part of the additional spending authority here. There are a couple of invoices that are remaining that need to be paid off from our deferred payment to STEM Scopes. That total up to $109,000 from the total of the $2.5 million that were part of the deferred payment.
Is that general practice of how we do this? I've not seen that before.
No, this is a little bit unusual in terms of the way in which things had gotten paid off. So yes, this is a little bit unusual.
And what was the total amount of the world language adoption?
That was, I don't have it offhand, but it was somewhere around $9 million.
Okay. And I thought we were going to be holding off on these until we had done a new adoption. Was, I thought, part of the conversation we had the last time to align with the new standards?
So you're correct that we had said that we were going to have GAP materials for math for 3 years and GAP materials for ELA for 2 years. So we are currently this school year going to be reviewing for our ELA, and then next year we will be reviewing for our math, and that's why we need additional GAP materials here for math. And there is additional GAP materials for the dual language math as the dual language classrooms are expanding.
Right, and the dual language I understood, and obviously we support, as a board, the expansion and continuation of that. So is this all the GAP materials that will be needed? Are there going to be additional ELA materials added later, or is this it?
No, this should be it, because ELA we're actually doing this year, the adoption review, and so next school year we will be delivering the new ELA books, the new materials.
So this is the gap.
Correct.
This is it.
This is it.
And even for the math, that'll be the year after.
Correct.
We
We're
won't
doing
be
it
ordering
so that we
more.
have it for next year as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you for
You're
the
welcome.
explanation.
Thank you. Any additional comments on EE15? Seeing none, all those in favor of EE15, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. EE15 passes unanimously. May I please have a motion and a second on EE16? Moved by Ms. Brinkworth, second by Dr. Osgood. Audience input on EE16. Seeing none, to my colleagues, I have Ms. Al-Hadef.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in the executive summary, in the last bullet point, it says, to the extent SROs have not completed training related to racial equity and best practices for interactions with persons who have intellectual or developmental disabilities, SBBC will provide training opportunities for all SROs assigned to school sites during regular school hours or agreed upon early release days or employee planning days at no cost. So my question is, does that also incorporate, like if there is a fight in the school, will the SROs be trained on de-escalation strategies to stop the fight from happening?
Good afternoon, Brian Katz, Chief Safety and Security Officer. Thanks for the question. The reality is that there's a host of trainings that the SROs go through based on their individual agency and the information that they're provided. That specific bullet that you read was called out because it was a board call out saying that it was something that they wanted, you all wanted us to prioritize in these conversations. I'd have to go back to the individual agencies to try to get a sense of exactly what type of training is provided based on what you're asking.
Okay, and then also is this training happening early on in the year, and then also does it happen annually?
So we haven't set a specific threshold or time frame for it to happen. We had one that was scheduled right at the end of last school year that actually was canceled based on COVID, where it happened like right as COVID actually hit us and we closed down the school, so it did not happen. I know that several of the agencies, including our largest agencies, did hold the training prior to coming back to school this year to cover those tasks, but I can't tell you whether all of them have done it up till now. We're still in the process of trying to figure out sort of in our new normal what that training would look like and how to bring it together.
And does the training happen annually?
So there's no annual requirement for the training to happen. It's us as a district trying to push for it to happen at least once a year for them to have had that offer of training. We know that we work closely with the staff in this, and they're happy to provide that training. So I don't see any barriers to us being able to at least offer it every year, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Ms. Alhadeff. Any additional comments on EE16? Seeing none, all those in favor of EE16, please indicate by saying aye. Those opposed say no. EE16 passes unanimously. May I please have a motion and a second on II1? Moved by Ms. Brinkworth, second by Ms. Good. Audience input on II1? Seeing none, to my colleagues, II1 at Ms. Alhadeff.
No, thank you. I believe now that we are in 100% compliance with the signing of all the camera agreements, so I'm really happy and excited about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, all those in favor of II1, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. II1 passes unanimously. May I please have a motion and a second on J1 as well as JJ1 through JJ13? Moved by Ms. Good, second by Dr. Oz. Good. Audience input on J1 and JJ1 through JJ13.
Yes, Natalie Lynch Walsh, Plantation, Florida. Okay, J1, Bennett Elementary School. And what a perfect example of what happens when you don't do long-term planning before you go out for a bond. Because if you go back in history and pull everything that we knew in 2014, you should not be having this discussion now. This is the precise sort of long-term planning from a master facilities plan where you have a conversation after you do a needs assessment. You look at how the school is used. You look at what programs are at the schools. You look at demographic projections and whether those are coming from in-boundary or reassignments. Bennett is a school I distinctly remember from years ago being under-enrolled and having, I think the PTA was run by reassignments. So it's not like this was not known, but it was not addressed because there was no long-term plan that occurred. So some questions that should be asked are about these buildings that they're planning to do in phase 2. So phase 1, essential repairs. When I go back and look, all those other roofs, the roofs on the other buildings, are all priority 1. Are they not using those buildings at all? Do they not leak? These are the buildings that have Castaldi reports. They weren't on Derek Messier's high FCI building list back in 2014, oddly. They are all listed as priority 1 in the needs assessment. And then we also know from HERE, they did an individual building assessment in terms of FCIs. These buildings that are not being addressed in this first phase, that are critical priority 1, were built in 1958, 52, 52, 58, and the little storage unit in 76. So HERE let you know April 5th, 2016, well, he sent it to Leo Bobadilla, and God knows if things ever left his desk. But the district hired Jacobs to perform facility condition assessments for all facilities. In September 2014, the district received an electronic copy of the FCA via Jacobs' proprietary database MAPS. Information from MAPS was exported to create 2 PDF needs assessment reports, summary and details for each campus that were posted to Broward's website. The summary reports included an overall facility condition index for each campus. Individual building FCI numbers were not available. This report came about when Ms. Brinkworth was asking about Stranahan, and that's when you got to see the condition of each building. So before you approve this, you want to look at whether you're leaving kids going to music in a leaky building, whether it's moldy. I don't know what the conditions are exactly over there, but this is absolutely a discussion that should have occurred in 2014, and the scope of work should have addressed everything holistically, not piecemeal, where it looks like you're going to destroy half a campus in phases.
Thank you. So, to my colleagues, I have Ms. Olive.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in phase 1, how much money are we looking to spend for phase 1?
Frank Girardi, Executive Director, Capital Program. I'm going to let Atkins talk about the money on this one for the phase 1, if we have that. Ashley?
Thank you. Through the chair, Ashley Carpenter with Atkins. So phase 1 is can be accomplished with the budget that's already been set aside by the board, which is covered in the DEFP. So that's approximately $1.8 million for the total project and approximately 1.2-ish for the FLCC.
So what I'm concerned about is that if we are going to put all this money into phase 1 and then we're still undecided in what exactly phase 2 looks like because we don't have a plan, I'm afraid that we're going to be putting money into something that we might be taking down a building.
Sure, and I think that's a very valid question. The buildings that have been identified as part of phase 1 have been agreed. There's been a consensus among many, many groups that those buildings are going to stay no matter what. And the work that's being performed in phase 1 is roofing and HVAC. So that's work that definitely has to be done regardless. If the building is going to stay, we have to do that work in order to protect the asset. So that is definitely not money that will be wasted or something being torn down, you know, in relatively short order. The buildings that are a part of phase 2, that's because it's not decided yet what will happen in phase 2. And the renovation work is quite costly. So there's, you know, just options being explored that will be presented to the board at a workshop.
And are the buildings in phase 1 currently have leaky roofs?
I cannot answer that at the moment. I'm not sure of the exact condition of the buildings in phase 1, but we can get that to you, definitely.
Okay. Could you come back to me? I just lost my question.
Yep,
in my
sure.
head.
Ms. Levinson?
I have concern about the way this is being done too. These are the total student stations. Where are the students in the buildings? Because it's under-enrolled by 215 students. So when you put where the student stations are, where are the students? Do we know?
Joseph Beck, demographer, demographics and enrollment planning department. So specifically the students on campus, to Mrs. Levinson's question?
Yes.
So building, the phase one includes buildings 7, 9, and 11. Building 9 is the only classroom building of those three. 11 is the cafeteria, and 7 has some mixed uses,
Yeah,
custodial
80,
stuff.
Joe, I believe
And
85 is the
85,
other one.
yes, and 85 is the modular buildings.
Right. So that's a modular
So yeah, the
building.
modular classrooms in building 9 have classrooms. And student stations.
So why would we be re-roofing a modular classroom when the school is under-enrolled?
So that's a broader question, obviously.
That one's not really for you, actually. I was really asking where the kids were. I'll get to that question afterwards, but this lists all the student stations. I'm asking where are they concentrated? The top part, phase one, when I add it up, has 268 student stations. And then the remainder are in phase two.
Correct.
But I'm talking about when we're looking at a piecemeal like this, where are the kids now? Can they be consolidated? We have to look at a broader plan to figure out exactly what's happening here.
So just from an enrollment and facility use standpoint, there's not an elegant way to reduce the footprint of the school, of course, without actually eliminating capacity, right? The older buildings, which would be phase two, which is a later conversation, buildings 1, 2, 3, and 4, have a significant portion of the student stations. Building 9 is regular primary and intermediate classrooms, and building 85, or the modulars right now, houses the ESE program.
Okay. So we don't know exactly where the 327 students are located.
Sure, I'm sorry if I didn't answer that question through the chair. Students are scheduled in Building 2, which is the admin building and classrooms. Building 3, which includes the media center. Building 4, Building 9, and Building 85. There is also, this doesn't show up in the straight calculation of enrollment and FISH, but there are several pre-K ESE classrooms on campus that have very low utilization per room numbers of students per room. And they are using, I believe it's 8 classrooms.
Okay, so thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. That's the demographics piece of it. But what I'm trying to get at is consolidating the kids into certain buildings in the school to figure out what's going to be done on a broad spectrum. Because to me, I don't. Why would you be re-roofing a modular when you're so under-enrolled? Why aren't the kids removed from that building? There's plenty of space.
Correct. Now, I just want to make sure that we are talking modular, not portables. So these are the concrete modulars that are somewhat of a permanent building. They can be relocated, but they're full concrete classrooms. They're not portables.
Right, but they were put on the campus because you needed additional capacity. That's what the
Correct.
modulars are used for, correct?
Yes, absolutely. You're right.
Okay, so that brings me back to my original question of why you would be attending to a modular when you have room in the others. Because this is putting us over budget. You're just saying that the first part meets the budget we have right now. You're going to come back to us for a large amount of money to do the others, which will be more costly.
Right, it would be with one of the options shown in here, whether it's demolition and new building or renovation. Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to say I'm confused about why this is being done like this.
Okay, I'm going to share my comments similar to Ms. Levinson's. Ms. Brinkworth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this conversation, the project manager brought forth to the school and to the demographics department and a lot of people around the table to say that their recommendation for several...
Closer to the microphone, sorry. Just hard with the mask.
Several of the buildings on the campus similar to other schools that we've dealt with, are not worthy of putting dollars in them at all. And so, you know, a very difficult conversation ensued about what would be the future for the campus at Bennett Elementary. Remembering that Bennett Elementary is co-located with Sunrise Middle School, and many of the surrounding schools in the city of Fort Lauderdale are at capacity or were at capacity prior to COVID-19. And so the conversation around, you know, a school where there was a custody, a phase replacement was started, and then it was stopped. And now how to move forward from that. Yes, back in 2014, there should have been more conversation around FCI and what made sense. And we're further along now, and the conditions have deteriorated. And so I would say that the larger conversation has brought in Zoe Saunders from the City of Fort Lauderdale, the Education Advisory Board from the City of Fort Lauderdale, the Downtown Development Authority is also having conversations. And so there's a broader conversation about what should occur at Bennett Elementary School. Just at the Education Advisory Board meeting in October, the AB voted a communication to Commission recommending, in summary, support for the proposed Phase 1 SMART bond allocation and for the city's continued engagement in Phase 2 planning for Bennett Elementary School. With respect to Phase 2 planning, the idea is for city staff and the EAB to continue collaborating with the school and surrounding neighborhoods to capture residents' preference for long-term facility and program enhancements. And so what I can tell you is the city is very engaged. That communication will go to the commission. The neighborhood communities have been engaged. And one of the things that is very important to me as a District 3 school board member is that when demographics looked at the neighborhoods where Bennett is bounded students from, there are some neighborhoods that generate 0 students. And we know that there are not 0 students living in those neighborhoods. And so how do we, as a school district, provide quality public education to those families? And if the facility issue is the #1 issue being raised by those families, then it's incumbent upon us to look at what do we need to do about that. And so we've had conversations about other school facilities, and we've looked at phased implementation for them. And I know when Parkway came before us and this conversation about Bennett was happening, my feeling was we need to look at moving forward with the school's buildings that had already been replaced during that phase replacement and go ahead and do those, because we know those will be remaining. And this longer conversation that involves the city and other entities in the community is going to take more time. And so what we can do, I believe we should do. And so I asked staff to look at, is it a possibility that we move forward with the same way we move forward with Parkway, and that they felt like that was a good solution. And so they're bringing the phased approach, and that's the item that's before us today. I will tell you that the principal, Danielle Smith, is very engaged. The Civic Association president for that homeowners association is the PTA president at the school. And although there are high numbers of reassignments at the school, the community surrounding that school has changed. And we really need to look at what is the solution for long-term for Bennett Elementary. So I will be supporting the item and ask for my colleagues to support the item moving forward as well. Thank you.
Thank you. A couple of questions that I have. First question is, what do we anticipate the cost to be doing it in 2 phases rather than in just 1? For instance, if we waited, right? Mm-hmm. There's obviously, or typically, there is some additional cost when you're breaking it up into these phases. So have we contemplated that?
Right. Go ahead, Ashley.
Thanks, Frank. Yes, we have contemplated that, and you're right. I think there is probably a nominal increase in cost due to doing it in 2 phases. However, the campus is, it is easy to separate, you know, the scopes of work, and while there may be some additional cost in having 2 separate contracts, we still think that it's probably best for the campus to be able to get the buildings that need the roofing work done early, and then when we come in with phase 2, those buildings will all be, you know, finished and ready to accept children and you know, but yes, you're right. If we were doing it all in one phase, there's a possibility that the general conditions for the contractor would be less. However, if the duration of the first project is a year, let's say, or whatever, and the duration of phase 2 is a year and a half, I don't think that the duration of the projects really would differ that much. The buildings have to be done, you know, pretty much one at a time anyway. So,
Right.
and that's what the general conditions are based upon is duration for the most part. So it's not a big difference.
But to clarify, they don't have to be done one at a time, meaning some could be done concurrently. I mean, you don't have to just work on one building and then do the next, correct?
It depends on the enrollment, and it depends on.
No, I understand that,
Right.
but I'm
Yeah.
saying it's not necessary, it doesn't have to be
It
one
doesn't
building
have
at a
to be
time.
done like that,
Right,
but
because some buildings don't
practically-
have students in them, and the impact of the campus is different depending on what you're doing to that building. The second question is, from the logistics, if we go out with 2 phases, we potentially could have 2 different companies
Yes.
doing the work. So we would have then the potential of having 2 different contractors on the same campus doing the work, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so our general conditions and so forth would potentially be more because we're in essence paying twice.
Correct. and
But
that's
you're
what
saying
actually-
that consideration you see to be a nominal cost difference.
Correct.
Okay. It's hard for me to understand how that's nominal because general conditions can be pricey, especially when you start to make the overall project smaller. Your general conditions from a percentage basis are often greater. So when you take something that's a larger project and break it into 2, you now have general conditions twice, and typically your percentage of those general conditions are slightly higher. Not always, I understand that, but I guess the word nominal, as much as I like that word, I'm concerned that that's maybe not a reality to what the physical numbers will be when we have to contemplate what that is as we go through a phase 1 and a phase 2. My second question is, everything in phase 1, just a confirmation, because I know Ms. Brinkworth had mentioned this, everything in phase 1, no matter what we're contemplating, at least today, for a phase 2, would be utilized in the overall scope of what this project will look like, correct? Nothing in phase 1 is potentially something where we're going to say, oh, now how we're picturing the campus, are we potentially leaving something behind? And I think both of my colleagues have said this in different ways. We just don't want to spend dollars on any portion of a project that when we reimagine what this school could look like going forward, were dollars we potentially wouldn't have spent if we had done it all as one project.
Right, and that was looked at in the separation of the 2. Phase 1 is going to happen. If we just did this as a whole project and waited at the last, till the end to decide what phase 2 would be, phase 1 would still be done.
So the specific buildings, the conditions they're in, and the fact that they will absolutely be utilized no matter what we do with this campus, all of these buildings and these specific projects would be done no matter what.
Correct, and if you look at the dates of the buildings, there's only one that's as old as I am, that's a mechanical room. But the rest of the buildings are all the newer buildings. And in phase 2, those are the buildings that have received custodies from the state to be demolished.
Okay. And how much more time do we see this phase 2 rolling out? I mean, if we go forward with this, what is phase 2? Is this a year and a half from now that you're going to bring it back? Like, when do you anticipate we're going to get what we need with our work with the community to bring something back to the board?
I don't know if Ashley knows that, 'cause she's been in most of those meetings, but I don't think it would be a year. We would be getting on it right away to see what we can put together as a presentation. Probably wouldn't be until the beginning of next year, because we're already through pretty much of our workshops and everything. So we'd have to get a workshop and bring it forward to give all the options.
So the reason I ask that is because sometimes pressure is necessary for us to move on something, right, as a large organization. And if we have phase 1 moving forward, I almost feel as if there would be somewhat less pressure for then phase 2 to necessarily be determined as quickly as if we were doing this all again in one combined scope of work. And I'm sure, Ms. Brinkworth, this was challenging to make a determination. Does this make the most sense? Being someone who's only hearing pieces of the conversation, I'm uncomfortable not agreeing, especially if my colleague who has been very involved in this believes this is the best opportunity in her community, and I absolutely want to be able to support that because you have, Ms. Brinkworth, more information than I do on this. At the same time, I guess I would just look to you to confirm that even now hearing the concerns of the colleagues and things that you've spoken about, and I guess I'll hear from Mr. Runcie, I just need an additional confirmation that you still feel comfortable and these things have all been contemplated at this point. So, Mr. Runcie.
Yeah, so what our plan is to, as Ms. Brinkworth alluded to, is to have these extensive conversations with the Education Advisory Board, local community representatives and parents, and really try to get a sense of what's possible with Bennett, especially in the context of being adjacent to Sunrise Middle, and what kind of opportunities can we create there that would meet the expectations of a community that has changed over time. Our intention is to have these conversations, continue to have these conversations this fall, and come up with some type of recommendation and strategies well in advance of finishing or going forward with the phase 2 work. So that's the, that's a commitment we have, and I think that's something I know I'm comfortable with. I think it's the right thing to do. We have, I would say, over the last couple of years, through Ms. Brinkworth's guidance and help, and the new education director from the city of Fort Lauderdale, I think we've made some really good inroads in having some really good conversations and partnerships about how we can leverage the educational assets that we have in the city of Fort Lauderdale to better meet the needs of the community and essentially bring parents and students back into the district who have continued to look for other alternatives because they don't either have confidence in those schools or some of the programming. So we're trying to work through that, and we believe having those conversations and working with those communities to shape what those schools look like are going to get us to where we need to get to. In the meantime, we need to fix the most dire situation that we have in the school for the students that are currently attending it.
So, thank you, Mr. Runcie. I'm just going to finish my comments, and I will go back to my colleagues. So, I guess what I would say is that, well, one more quick question. Some of the re-roofing for buildings both 9 and 85 are classrooms. So by us taking action today, is there going to be movement of students so that the work can actually begin before summer, or are we moving forward with this knowing that this is potentially summer work? Because if that's the case, then I'm not sure that it makes sense to break it into phases.
We would have to really take a hard look at the schedule. Yes, it is roofing, and we are having more roofing crews on roofs during these times, so we can get them done quicker.
But we have kids in brick and mortar again.
Right.
Again, I'm saying this because if the intent is to move this forward into expedite, but we're going to break it into phases, and now a good crux of the work is still not going to happen right away, I want to make sure that we're breaking this up, knowing that we're still going to actually make progress and that it's not going to be kind of at a standstill because now we have students back on campus and we can't get this work done. So I just need to confirm that that's the intent with these projects. Ashley, I think you were going to.
Yeah, sorry, I'll just make one quick comment, which is that there wouldn't be any construction taking place prior to the summer.
Okay.
Because these plans still have to be approved for permitting and put out to bid and all of that, so.
Okay, so if we did phase 1 and 2, if we paused longer before passing this, let me back up and say it this way. You need us to approve phase 1 now so that we're prepared to be able to do phase 1 for the summer. Is that correct?
Yes.
And if we pause in this, we will not be able to get that done, is that correct?
Yes.
Or we still would be able to?
No.
Okay, so that's the reason then, for us to be able to get anything done in the summer, we have to at least move forward in a phase 1. And then I greatly appreciate, and I wrote this down, but I didn't share it, Ms. Brinkworth, to your point of bringing more families back. There is no question, I hear constantly that in the East, families wish they felt like they had schools to be able to send their students to. And it is incumbent on us to make sure, and certainly if the facilities are a significant piece of that decision, that we make the investments so that our families do feel like they have that true choice of being able to come back. So with that, Dr. Osgood?
Yeah, I was just gonna make the point about them needing this approved now so that it can be done in the summer. There are constant conversations. Ms. Brinkworth and I share the city of Fort Lauderdale, and we go to different meetings with different groups, but they bring up all the schools in the city. And the schools on the east, let me be clear, they have marvelous programs. They're some of the best schools that you can have your children in. But and great staff, principals, teachers, but the outside of the school buildings are deplorable because a lot of the buildings are old. When I look at all of these buildings that are on here, all except one is older than I am. So my question is this, I'm trying to understand, when we get those custodial reports in the district that we can push a building down, how is it still optional that we keep the building up? Because the more we do these buildings, the more I find that we had these reports, and they predate most of us being here on the board. But we've chosen to keep these buildings up. They're too old right now for you to do anything. They become hubs for mold and rats and all kind of other stuff that live in old buildings. We don't have students in them, but they're an asset that we're holding on to. And another thing we don't factor in is they add to the numbers of the school enrollment, where it said it'll show you a number of students because of the capacity, but you have buildings that you literally can't put students in. So it skews the data when it relates to the number of students that you could have in a school. If you have facilities that 100 seats are not available because the facilities are not able to be used, when you're calculating your enrollment and you're saying that it's under enrolled, you literally have 100 seats that you can't use. So I'm trying to understand if you could help me about the custodial reports, and once we get that report, how do we make decisions to keep these buildings up for 20 more years?
Usually, once we get the Gastaldi, if we do not have the funds to tear them down and rebuild, that's usually what stops the process.
So in hearing you say that, as we move forward in construction and we look to do additional projects, we need to do some kind of survey of all the buildings that we have those custodial reports on, and we need to have a conversation about funding of pushing them down or keeping them up, because it is becoming a major problem. And you have to face these projects because, again, you're dealing with the money issue. You know, in Parkway's case, the buildings are so old, if we push those down first, it gets rid of a lot of the problems in the appearance at the school that's just deplorable. And when people decide to go to the school and take pictures of those buildings and put them on Facebook and lie like we got children in them, it allows us to eliminate that, because these old buildings are not being occupied. You can't put people in them. But this is what I'm beginning to see in project after project, something that maybe we should talk about and discuss in a different way. How many, and staff, you can follow up with me with this answer. How many buildings do we have in the district right now that we have custodial reports that we got before 2012 that they should have been pushed down? What is that number? And then what is the projected cost of dealing with those buildings? I think as we do these projects, we have to take that into consideration, because it gives an image of a project that's not really the reality of what's going on at the campus. And in the city of Fort Lauderdale, our whole dynamics of children and family is changing. It's diversifying in a multiplicity of ways. So we're gonna have to continue to have conversations about the educational needs of the community, because we can't just keep doing what we've been doing, and it's not meeting the current need of the community and things that are gonna help us start children out early, reading on level, so by the time they get to 3rd grade, they're where they need to be and beyond. So for me, this is a serious conversation, and when you look at these buildings, it's clear to me as I'm looking at them, and you see how we have the 274 student stations calculated here for these buildings. And I don't know if they're occupied or not. As old as they are, with all the rain that's going on. If they are occupied, I'm sure we're constantly going out trying to do something to the roof, spending all this money just repairing, putting a Band-Aid, putting those tarps and all that other stuff y'all have to put on these buildings that's never gonna fix the problem because they need to be torn down. So I understand this issue, Ms. Brinkworth, because we share that east side with those old schools. I know Ms. Levison probably has the same thing at Nova and a lot of these older buildings. But these are some things that we have to take in consideration. I'm going to encourage the board members, if you have not done so, go check out some of these older buildings so you can see what we're dealing with. And I don't care what we do inside, if the outside of the building looks a certain way, it sends the wrong message about the school and what's happening in the school. It hurts me when I hear people say, we want schools that our kids can come back to. Well, the programming, the phenomenal people in the school, the results that we're getting academically is something in this district that we've never achieved before with all of our academic achievements. But we have to do something to the aesthetics of the building so that the community can see that the schools aesthetically are looking better. Thank you, Ms. Corn.
Thank you. So I believe we're all pretty much aligned with, I know we've addressed a lot of the questions, so I think I'm looking if we can go to, Ms. Aladev?
On phase one, with the re-roof cabling for the cafeteria, it was built in 2007, and then the building 85 was, it's gonna have classrooms with re-roofing, and it was built in 2003. Why do we need to re-roof them? I mean, they're not that old compared to, I mean, I get the 1958.
The question is, was there a specific evaluation determining that these buildings needed to be re-roofed?
Right. Yes, they are newer buildings, and we found that some of our newer buildings have needed to be re-roofed, and we've done that with other schools that they haven't held up. I do not know if we've done the reality check on this. I don't know if Ashley knows that, where we're going out to these schools and reviewing the roofs to see what needs to be done. I don't know, do you know if?
The roof reality check has not been done,
Okay.
but specifically the buildings that Ms. Al-Hadaf is speaking of is in building 11 with that cabling, that really is a very minor piece of work. I mean, you know, we're not replacing the roof is the answer. For building 85, I'd have to get back to you on that, but we will have, you know, that analysis done on the roof prior to submitting to the building department for permitting, so we'll.
And on the modular roofs, those are just single-ply membrane. Those are very easy, because when we moved the ones out to Parkland, I believe at the time, we moved sets out there, all it is putting a single membrane down. It's not a complete re-roof like we do on the major buildings where we're going down the deck. It's a concrete roof. So those are all minor repairs or minor re-roofs.
But we will have that, if there's a determination in that check, obviously that would then be removed from the scope of work,
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
Ms. Alida? Okay, on that, all those in favor of J1 with JJ1 through JJ13, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. J1 and JJ1 through JJ13 pass unanimously. May I please have a motion and a second on L1? Moved by Ms. Good, second by Dr. Osgood. Audience input on L1? Seeing none, to my colleagues, Ms. Good, did you have anything you'd
No,
like to share?
I just wanted to thank Mr. Sullivan for addressing all my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All those in favor of L1, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. L1 passes unanimously. May I please have a motion and a second on LL1 and LL2?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Good, second by Dr. Osgood. Audience input on LL1, LL2? Seeing none, to my colleagues, I have Ms. Alhadeff.
On LL2. So my question is, why can't the football teams play in one of the fields at one of our high schools?
Through the chair, John Sullivan, Chief Portfolio Service Officer, task assigned. That's what they've been doing in the past. There's no real additional cost for using Lockhart. Lockhart is closer to their school campuses, so that's why we are utilizing, or we are hoping to utilize Lockhart for those games. But Beckham, they're not charging us for a rental fee. So again, the cost that is associated with these games would be the same whether we had them there or another school site.
Some schools don't have a appropriate facility to host the games. That's why we utilize Lockhart, because then they have to try to go to some other school, and it becomes a non-neutral and scheduling problem that we've had. So Lockhart has been part of the mix for a long, long time in order to alleviate that issue.
Okay, but the $9,200, it says that's going to be paid with the game ticket revenue. What happens if you don't get that revenue?
So that's going to be through the chair. That's going to be a similar situation whether the game's at Lockhart or another facility. That's ours, because again, no matter where we're playing those games, the cost is very similar. If there's not, it's likely that those costs won't be covered sufficiently by the ticket sales, because we are limiting the ticket sales due to COVID-19. So those will be paid by past ticket sales and student athletics internal funds. But that's true across the board, whether you're playing at Lockhart or another football facility. That's ours.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have Ms. Good.
No, I just very quickly, I just appreciate staff bringing this forward. I understand the timing issue. But again, we have schools that don't have stadiums, and then the opportunity here to have the use of the stadium without virtue of having to pay a rental fee is something that's a positive for that school. So thank you.
Thank you. I have Dr. Osgood.
Yeah, and I'm glad to see this, and I hope we continue, because when Dillard needs to beat up on Ely, we have to limit people from coming in when we're at Dillard and when we're at Ely, because there's not enough space. So Lockhart gives us a bigger space that we can have more people and we can generate revenue. And I could list some other schools that Dillard beat up on, but I won't do that right now. I guess since Ms. Rupert not here, I'll just take advantage of this moment. So we appreciate the bigger space that we could have more people witness the damage that Dillard does on the football field.
And
Thank you, Dr. Osgood.
Through the chair, if I may add,
Yes.
this is the way we presented this was a more limited scope because we needed to get it done by today. But just so the community knows, and Dr. Osgood's point, we hope to continue this partnership with Miami Beckham.
Thank you. Ms. Brinkworth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to say thank you to staff. Thank you to the City of Fort Lauderdale, Commissioner Moritas. Mary Fertig actually was very instrumental in having this conversation early on with the City of Fort Lauderdale. Thank you to General Counsel Barbara Myrick, who also happens to be an alumni of Fort Lauderdale High School, to make sure that this item could get to us in time for Fort Lauderdale to have their first home game on their home field that when Dr. Osgood and I were in school, and also Ms. Myrick, always occurred at Lockhart Stadium. So it is a very exciting time for the City of Fort Lauderdale, for both Stranahan and Fort Lauderdale to be returning to their home field. And I look forward to years of opportunity for the football players to play not only at Fort Lauderdale and Stranahan, but also Dillard, as Dr. Osgood has so eloquently pointed out, to play their football games. And I also want to say that this is a difficult time, right? COVID is a difficult time. And one of the direct questions that I asked of Mr. Sullivan this morning was that issue of gate sales is going to be an issue for all of our schools. With a senior, I will tell you that the opportunity to have a football game and some sense of normalcy is something that they are holding very tight to. And so whatever we can do as a district to ensure that that sense of normalcy is returned for all of our students across the district is very important to me as a school board member. So I hope that we will be able to make sure that all of our schools are able to have that opportunity. And I'm very, very excited about Stranahan and Fort Lauderdale being able to play back at Lockhart Stadium. So thank you to all involved.
Thank you, Ms. Murray.
I'd just like to make a prediction for the Fort Lauderdale Gillette High School. That'll be a sellout, and probably the money they make from that will carry the expenses for any other school that's going to use Lockhart. But I would think if they're really thinking of innovative ways, if anybody knows the new design, they have that widescreen TVs that you can sit, and I would sell parking spaces so you could sit in your car and watch the game. But let's get innovative here. Thank you.
What I'm going to ask, because I know Dr. Osgood brought this up, and it's relevant not just for Lockhart, but there are more seats. And I know that we have talked about, at the district level, being able to provide a certain number of tickets per player, depending on what the sport is. I would hope that at the district level, if we do have a stadium that can hold more, we would allow them to have additional tickets. I know we talk about equality and equity all the time. For me, an equity issue for this would be allowing as many seats as possible for families to be able to participate with their students. So I hope that there's not going to be an issue if we have an ability at any school to provide more access for our families to be able to support their students. I would hope that we are considering that and allowing them to have those additional seats. With that, all those in favor of LL1 and LL2, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. LL1 and LL2 pass unanimously. I believe we have taken care of all of the items on the agenda. Before we go to our attorney-client session, I am going to ask my colleagues, we will not adjourn the meeting until after the attorney-client, but if there are any topics specifically that you would like addressed so that staff, while they're here, would be able to hear directly from us of the conversation. Was there anything that anyone wanted brought forward? I do have an item. Oh, Rocco?
Yes, is this for items to be discussed at future workshops?
Yes.
I believe I have one. I'll have to look for it. This will only take 1 second.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Rocco, I'll be right back to you as you're looking. Ms. Holodev?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to bring up that if the board could look at the possibility to clarify in policy to never have a preferred qualification negate a minimum qualification in a job description.
So there's a concern that a preferred qualification is somehow in conflict with a minimum qualification?
Right, that the applicant must meet the minimum qualification.
Mr.
So, yeah, so the job specifications are defined by this board, so at the time that a job description is put together, the board can clarify whatever they need in terms of preferred and required qualifications through that particular process. But you know, we don't do that ultimately. I'll go and review an item. If there's some concerns raised about it, I don't obviously look at every single one of them outside of direct reports, but if there's a concern raised, I'll look at it, and if there is some question about it, we'll adjust accordingly. So
if there's a specific job description, I think what he's asking, if there's a specific job description, Ms. Aladef, or if someone in the community there's a concern, if you could bring that forward, it can be reviewed to make sure that there's not a conflict.
Correct.
Yes?
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to clarify per the job description, they must meet the minimum qualifications of all of them?
Right.
Correct.
And then preferred is
before the
preferred.
preferred.
Yeah, preferred is preferred, but minimum, you have to meet that.
Thank you. Rocco?
Yes, my topic is...
Oh, I'm sorry. To that same point, Ms. Good? I'll be right back, Rocco. Ms. Good?
I mean, I don't want to get into an extensive conversation at all, but there is a situation where you have minimum qualifications and you have preferred, and the preferred is an enhanced version of the minimum. So I just don't want us to say that a blanket statement that you have to meet the minimum and therefore the preferred is no longer. The preferred can be an enhanced, depending on the job description, and this is way getting in the weeds.
Yeah. But it's there for a
Can
reason.
right, you want to minimally meet this, but the preferred can be an enhanced version, a master's that encompasses maybe this, or a doctorate that encompasses some of the minimums. So I don't want to get into the particulars. I don't think this is for us to discuss. We adopt job descriptions. HR is supposed to ensure that all candidates who qualify get interviewed in some fashion. I've spoken to Mr. Runcie about that, and then ultimately go through the process. If there's an issue of job descriptions, and I know this board probably gets into the details of job descriptions by far more than probably any other school board in the state of Florida. So I think the issue is about a process and more than the details that we're getting into. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Good. Ms. Levinson?
I don't want to get into the discussion either, but the blanket statement that the minimum qualifications must always be met. There should be no deviation from that ever.
Thank you. Rocco?
My topic is, and I'm not sure if I'm phrasing this correctly, but the enhancement of education regarding African American and minority history through curriculum changes, specialty social studies classes, and the engagement of middle and elementary schoolers.
Thank you. I think, did you bring that forward at the I think you brought that forward at the last workshop for us to, and
Thank you, Ms.
I
Winkler.
think Mr. Gold mentioned that we have
Yeah, we're going to be bringing something to the board at a future workshop, but that's something we actually started to discuss last year.
Yeah.
And are going to make sure we find some ways to enhance what we have at the district.
And I think, I believe that it's multifaceted in
Yeah.
terms of the different ways that we're looking to be able to integrate that into the education delivered to students. So, and Mr. Gold, you'll be bringing that forward at a future workshop soon, correct?
November 10th will be our first 1 hour set aside to begin the framing of a prolonged year-long conversation.
Thank you very much. And then my top, I'm sorry, Dr. Osgood?
Mr. Gold, when you bring that forward and you look at the African-American history, it's very important that you look at it from a perspective of 5,000 years ago, not 2,000 years ago. The 2,000 years ago does not work. It's watered down. It starts with the period of slavery and does not deal with all the ingeniousness of African-American people from Egypt when they were creating math and algebra and pyramids, how they served as kings, leaders, and rulers. So I'm not interested in a curriculum that's going to start 2,000 years ago. It's very important that it starts at the beginning, like with 5,000 years ago. It will be more beneficial to all of us as we expose ourselves to it.
Thank you, Dr. Osgood. Ms. Levinson?
I'm sorry. It reminded me when Dr. Osgood just mentioned this. Something was brought up at that Council of Great City Schools conference last week, and I wanted to see about the board's interest. In Rochester, New York, they've asked the College Board to add an AP African and African American course. And there's, letters that I have that other districts have also sent to the College Board. So I just wanted to bring it up now, Ms. Korn, to see if there's consensus. Thank you, Dr. Osgood. I meant to bring this up today so that we could join with the other districts if there's interest. The College Board has already been contacted, and there appears to be interest in creating the course, but I would like us as a board to also send a letter in support of it.
So let me ask through Ms. Myrick, if I could, is that something that we would need to vote on, or can we just do that through a consensus of people shaking their heads, Ms. Myrick, when we're talking about a request along those lines?
I think that it could be just a request, and I think that, it would be something to me that Mr. Gall should probably bring up when he's bringing up the first discussion about this, but you certainly could, through Mr. Gall and Mr. Runcie, request that of the college boards.
So here's my question from a timing perspective. If others have already brought it forward, and there's going to be a conversation prior to potentially our November 10th, does it make more sense, behoove us to get a consensus right now that we would send a letter? I'm just concerned if we wait till November 10th's conversation, if we're already aligned with the idea of supporting it, more specifics about how we would want to further communicate, we could do at that point. But if I'm seeing a general shaking of heads that yes, there is a consensus that we would join in that momentum to make that request, and I will work with Mr. Runcie then on doing that. Thank you, Ms. Levinson. If you could just
And
supply.
I will forward you the
I was gonna
sample
say,
so
yes.
that you all could do that.
That would
Thank
be very
you
helpful.
much.
Thank you. And then I would like to just bring up something that as a parent of students in this new Phase 2 signing out of students or signing students in. I have found that there are parents who we're obviously asking for as minimal people as possible come onto our campuses, and there are parents who are asking not to necessarily come onto the campus, and there's already a limited number of people that can sign an individual out. And I'm wondering if there's something that we would want to do during maybe this emergency period that would allow some flexibility in how a parent or an assigned person who's on the sheet at the beginning of the emergency sheet at the beginning of the year would have the ability to sign a student out without physically being there present to sign the paper. I know it creates some additional conversation. I didn't know if it's something that we're willing to contemplate a conversation about.
Well,
Ms. Good?
Just very quick, I mean, I think you need to visually somehow confirm who's signing the individual out, but maybe there's a way that the parent can come, it's almost curbside sign out, you know, that at least verification can be made. I don't feel comfortable with just doing electronically. I think that's going to lead to many other problems, but maybe there's another way that schools may have some ideas on how it could be accomplished.
Well, I'm bringing forward, I had someone actually ask me, could I be able to do it on a FaceTime? Meaning I'm still physically, and state who I am as if I was walking in, or the phone number that's provided on the sheet. The school would call that number if there was a request. I'm asking this because there are parents, I mean, we're being cognizant of volunteers. I'm just bringing it forward because it's something I've asked. If my colleagues don't want to consider it, we don't have to, but it was something that was brought forward as something for us to ask if we would consider an alternative to our normal sign-out process. So I'm not seeing any desire to consider it further, so we don't need to, but it was asked of me to ask the question. Ms. Good.
Well, can we get guidance maybe from Dr. Wanza and others as far as if there's any other option that she feels can be safely accomplished other than the parent having to walk into the building?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Valerie Wanza, Chief School Performance and Accountability Officer. So I will say, being that we act in locus parentis, in the place of the parent, we could work with, does the parent pull up and someone walks the child out and do that, but to just do it electronically without any type of physical interaction with someone, I'll look to Ms. Myrick. I'm going to tell you, I think we expose ourselves to liability that we may not want to enter into. All of us are parents, and I just think that we could work with school procedures that limits the people coming into the building.
Right.
But the physical identification and interaction with someone, I don't know if we want to relax that in any time. Just my opinion.
Thank you.
Okay. So with that, at this time, we are going to have an attorney-client session. Staff obviously will not be in the room unless specifically identified. When we come back, there will be no further items, so we will be coming back.
I need to read this into the.
I'm going to.
Okay.
But I just want the public to be aware, we will not be discussing any further items. So when we conclude the attorney-client session, we will only be coming back to the school board meeting to officially adjourn the meeting. So with that said, the schedule ordered, yes, we still have to have a quorum, and, sorry, I'm just looking for at this time, I'm advised the General Counsel would like to request an attorney-client session for approximately 1 hour, and at this time I'm requesting all staff to please exit the meeting. Ms. Myrick, if you could please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to request the school board convene an attorney-client session in order to discuss settlement negotiations and/or strategy relative to the following pending litigation, which is consolidated for discovery purposes and pending against the School Board of Broward County before the Circuit Court of the 17th Judicial Circuit in and for Broward County under case number CACE 19-80000, paren 26, close paren 20, close paren. The following litigation: Alyssa Aladef, case number 19-008077. Ashley Baez, case number 19-007722. Scott Beagle, case number 19-007939. Anthony Borges, case number 18-008568. Felicia Bergen, case number 19-024161. Isabel Checker, case number 19-007725. J.A. Colton, case number 20-009412. Martin Duque Anguigo, case number 20-001328. Nicholas and Alexandra Duarte, case number 19-007699. Melissa Feiss as personal representative to the estate of Aaron Feiss, case number 20-002525. Samantha Fuentes, case number 19-007920. Eula Gonzalez, case number 20-008824. Samantha Grady, case number 19-008062. Jamie Gutenberg, case number 19-007720. Nicole Cook and Igal Hebron on behalf of EH, case number 19-026407. Molly Henderson and Joseph Von Henderson on behalf of JH, case number 19-026474. Deborah Hickson as personal representatives of the estate of Christopher Hickson, case number 20-002527. Lou Corrier, case number 19-019402. Martin Cabicino, case number 19-206654. Kyle Lehman, case number 19-007924. Stacy Lapel, case number 19-007784. Craig London on behalf of Zachary London. Amy Schwartz on the behalf of Jacob Schwartz. Monica Kelly on behalf of Nicole Carrillo. Michael Barak on behalf of Samara Barak. Michelle Barak on behalf of Samara Barak. Alexandra Alvarez on behalf of Victoria Alvarez. Beatrice Collin on behalf of Emily Vanquist. Joel Leffer on behalf of Chloe Leffer, and Lucio Carrillo, case number 19-012876. Cara Marie Longron, case number 19-024907. Madison King, case number 19-026599. Caden Core, case number 19-024120. Samantha Major, case number 19-008071. Daniela Menskal, case number 19-012884. Gina Rose Montalto, case number 19-007787. Joaquin Oliver, case number 19-007802. William Olson, case number 19-007696. Graham and Jonelle Perkovich on behalf of AP, case number 19-001507. Elena Petty, case number 19-023307. Meadow Pollock, case number 18-009607. Helena Ramsey, case number 19-007727. Alex Schachter, case number 19-007723. Carmen Schentrup, case number 19-007736. Elizabeth Stout, case number 19-024068. Dominic Tempone, case number 19-024043. Peter Wang, case number 19-007733. Alessandra Weber, case number 20-008819. Benjamin Winkander, case number 19-007732. Madeline Wilford, case number 19-026088. And Tia Bell Williams on behalf of MW, case number 19-007272. The following persons will attend this attorney-client session: school board members Donna P. Korn, Chair; Dr. Rosalind Osgood, Vice Chair; Robin Bartleman; Heather P. Brinkworth; Patricia Good; Lori Ridge Levinson; Ann Murray; Nora Rupert; Robert W. Runcie, Superintendent of Schools; Eugene K. Pettis, Esquire; Tricia Widowfield, Esquire; and Barbara J. Myrick, Esquire. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So
I just have to text Mr.
I have additional things I'm supposed to say, but
Okay,
you didn't
okay,
finish
I'm
the
sorry.
script.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So the purpose of the attorney-client session is to discuss settlement negotiations and/or litigation strategy relative to the pending litigation. The certified court reporter will record the session, and only those persons noted in the advertisement will be permitted to attend. At this time, the School Board of Broward County, Florida will recess the regular school board meeting for an attorney-client session. The attorney-client session will be held in the boardroom on the first floor of the Kathleen C. Wright Administration Center, 600 Southeast 3rd Avenue in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 33301. The attorney-client session will take approximately 1 hour. At the conclusion of the business of the attorney-client session, the regular school board meeting will reconvene, and so we are now ready to move forward. Is Mr. Pettis here?
He's coming in from the parking lot.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Thank you. At this time, the regular school board meeting is now reconvened. We have accomplished going through our full agenda and seeing that the scheduled order of business for this regular school board meeting of the School Board of Broward County, Florida has been completed. Seeing no further obligation, I now adjourn the meeting. Thank you.